Yeah, but my tastes tend to be less extravagant. I don't look for that car that's the unicorn.
Yeah, but the unicorn cars that I look for are like in the woods somewhere, and the owner's like, "Oh, that
It's
pile
weird
of
how you
junk?"
find those.
I'm
Like that
almost
truck you just got rid of. Was it a 1-ton?
the Chevy,
Yeah.
the one I was using to
Yeah.
tow. It was a 3/4 ton.
So 3/4 ton.
Yeah,
And you paid how much for it? Not
Very-
a lot. You know
not
what I
a,
mean?
not a lot.
And I'm
yeah.
like, how did you find that? I'm
Facebook
looking at
Marketplace.
auctions and not even paying that.
Yeah,
And that truck was mint.
it really was. Yeah, but see, I'm convinced, and I've said this before. I'm convinced that they find me now. It's weird. It's like I've got some sort of like, and I don't actually believe that, but it's like, but it's funny to like talk about it that way.
If you go through your list and the cars and the quality, they just, I don't know how they get there. And even some of the cars that you showed me, like the 700,
Yeah,
it didn't have a pan.
it had nothing under it.
Right.
The Earth had reclaimed half
So
of that
not
car.
only are the cars that you find crazy, but then you find the parts, like the side skirts of the 7 Series.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that were. It's just I don't know, man. I guess when you have your ear to the ground, you hear things that you otherwise wouldn't. I guess.
well, I've never thought, because you always mention, I searched, I think of eBay. I only think of one, but there's,
Germany, Japan.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
UK,
would never
eBay.
think of that.
Well, I mean, it just goes back to, owning cars that were from Europe, and therefore whether or not they were Americanized when they came stateside with headlights and safety and all that sort of stuff, then you naturally would want to go searching in Europe for the actual Euro parts that the car came with.
Yeah.
So that's like
I get
my
it.
MO. Like if you had an American car, yeah, there'd be no reason for you to really search outside of America for parts for that car unless that car, like Pontiac, like our GTO, the newer GTOs, the Pontiacs were Holdens in Australia.
That's weird, because I thought Isuzu was. Is that the same company? Just GM owned it over in...
No, Isuzu is
Because that's a Holden.
Isuzu is Asian, and I don't remember if that's Japan.
I thought it was Australian.
No, not Isuzu. Really? No.
I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just thinking of a certain vehicle that came out of there.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet, and if we're talking about engineers, sound engineers, if I had an engineer here, he'd be, that big screen TV behind my camera would be on the back wall right here, and he'd be pulling up Isuzu, Wikipedia, and we'd be talking about Isuzu now. So we're not there yet with the podcast. But
we'll get there.
but I'm almost positive Isuzu is an Asian company. Because so Holden is Australian. Holden.
Right, so I was right there.
Yeah, and so was I. Yeah. Yeah.
No. I thought I was thinking of a completely different, you know what I mean? So
Well, the newer Pontiac GTOs, like the V8 ones. That car is available in Australia, but it's branded as a Holden. And even farther, you can buy that truck as what they call a ute, or the car as a ute, which is a truck. So you can get it in a truck version. It's a Holden ute, but it's our Pontiac GTO as like an El Camino. Pickup bed. Yeah. So it's an LS powered V8. You can get it in a 6-speed manual, like pickup truck car.
Wow.
Yeah. It's sick. And you can get them in like configurations where, they're like whatever those like Scat Pack or what, you can get it like 750 horsepower pickup truck, 6-speed manual V8 from the factory. That's big in Australia. I went out there a couple years ago, and like every car company out there for the most part has a ute. So you can buy a pickup truck version of a car out of like any car manufacturer in Australia. It's crazy.
That's kind of odd.
It's just a big thing. And it's been going on since like the 60s, because I saw like Ford Fairlane and like, we had our like Falcon, the early Ford Falcons you could get as like a pickup truck, and then it turned into the Ranchero or whatever.
Yeah.
Every Ford platform car except for like the Escort in Australia came in like a pickup truck version through the 70s and 80s, and it's crazy. Here, we just got like the Ranchero, the El Camino, and then we get some real weird ones like the Dodge. Oh my goodness, what was that thing called? You remember the Chrysler Daytona in the 80s?
Yeah.
They made a pickup truck version of that. It's like a Sprint or something. Then we had the Subaru Brat. Like we had those weird little pickup trucks. And then the American companies were working with Japanese companies. You know, the Chevy Love, remember the Love? That was built by like Mazda or something like that. I might have that one wrong. The Ford Courier.
Right.
No, the Ford Courier was made by Mazda. Chevy started working with, was it Toyota?
They resemble. If you take the headlights.
Yeah, I can't remember
early...
if Chevy was working with Toyota or not, because Chevy started working with Kia. No, we are starting to go down a rabbit hole that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So Chevy started working with like Toyota because they started Geo, and that was basically Toyota, because I even had a 95 Geo Prism for a while, and that was a rebranded Corolla.
Yeah.
You open the hood and the valve cover says Toyota. You know, it was
even then, you know, you do whatever electrical. So you learn these wire colors. You pull the ignition system out of a Geo Prism.
Yeah.
And it was the same ignition, constant, starter, accessory, those same colors.
Yeah.
Toyota.
It was all Toyota underneath the body. And so like even the same with the Geo Tracker, like that tracker.
Well, that became
the Suzuki, wasn't it, or something?
No, that was a Geo Tracker, but it became the Chevy Tracker and then absorbed the Chevy traits.
Yeah.
So it was Chevy ignition system, the pass lock and all that. So that's how I associate vehicles, is the electrical systems in them.
Yes.
Obviously,
yeah.
The motors sometimes don't, but yeah, when I look at a car like the Pontiac Vibe and then the Toyota Matrix.
Oh, newer stuff.
Same car.
Oh yeah. Yeah. See, and you're more well versed on that stuff, because all that new stuff, man, we're close in age. I know you're a few years older than I am, but like when I was a kid, I could literally tell you every car driving down the road, like what it was. Today, I'm like, I don't.
Well, we used to play the headlight game.
It's like a Nissan Leaf.
You'd
like,
have
what is that?
Coming towards you. Yeah. Oh, good luck with that.
That's what I mean. Those kind of cars, I have no idea. Even within the Nissan brand, like the Juke, the Leaf, the Cube, I don't know what any of that stuff is. Like, what is that?
Is that the names that you're talking about, or the actual car? Because the names are out of control too.
Yeah, those are the names of. Didn't Nissan make the Cube? Yeah, they did. Yeah, but like the Leaf and the.
But even then, they have traits. So even obviously, Nissan carries over with Infiniti. So when you look over at the, I don't know, the G whatever, the round headlights and you always, every time I went by, I went, oh my god, that's a Skyline.
Oh yeah.
You know, the traits always kind of.
Yeah, I mean, and that's speaking more of my language there, because I mean, as you know, like, you know, I'm a nerd about the Toyota Lexus stuff. So the Lexus stuff still being branded a Toyota in Japan. Same with Nissan and Infiniti, because I had a first and second gen Q45. So the first gen Q45 I had was known as a G50. That was like the platform, and that was a Nissan President in Japan.
Oh yeah.
But it was an Infiniti Q45 here, and so. I mean, you know, like Toyota and Nissan both knew, this is basically layman's terms. Nissan and Toyota both knew what their brands were viewed upon like in America. Like when people in America thought of Toyota, this is after Toyota first came to America. You know, you could buy the Toyota Stout, like the pickup truck. Yeah. Then the early Corollas, and then the introduction of like the Camry in the 80s. It was just like an econo box car. So, but in Japan, Toyota had, as you know, I own a Century. Like they had the Century, and they had like Toyota had a high-end luxury car brand all the way through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And they knew very well, same with Nissan, that they couldn't just send a Toyota Celsior to America with the Toyota branding and badging and all that on it and have Americans go, ooh, a luxury car. They're going to see it as a Toyota, and they're going to be like, what are they doing trying to compete? What's Toyota trying to do, compete with Lincoln and Cadillac?
I'm not gonna pay more for that car.
Exactly. Yeah. So they came up with Lexus. And so now Lexus was like a whole new thing. Sure. And at the time, most Americans didn't know that it was Toyota. People that worked on these cars did, because obviously they've started to realize all the parts were Toyota and whatever. But same with Nissan and Infiniti. And I kind of like that that's what happened. Like, because Infiniti and Lexus became these like luxury brands. But I love the fact that when you dive down the rabbit hole, you can, you know, like your Lexus LS400, you know, that's you can buy a Celsior in Japan now because they're 25 years old. So and I've got a few friends in the Northeast here that have actual Celsiors, like same, a UCF 20 like yours. Yeah. And the difference is, you know, obviously it's right-hand drive, but instrument cluster is like from outer space. Like I sat behind my buddy Johnny's steering wheel of a Celsior, and I think this was a 96. Yours is a 96, your Lexus. And you turn the key on, and it's like this. It's almost like this, not CGI, but it's like this. It's not like actual needles. It's like an LED screen almost. It's like these fake needles. When you turn the key on, these needles appear on like this.
In 96?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, for sure. My Century is a 91, and that's got a digital everything. It's not LED, but it's everything.
Oh, yeah,
speedometer,
Right.
thermostat, fuel gauge. My entire readout is all digital. I mean, obviously we were doing that in America too, like weird cars, like all the K cars, like the Chrysler K cars, Oldsmobile, Lincolns. They got into that weird digital cluster. Door is ajar. You know, like the car would actually talk to you. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
well, I know Chevy had the Cavalier Z24, and I remember that
the fuel of the speedometer was like a vial that would like fill.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was mind blowing when I was that age.
Yeah.
I was 14, 15 and seeing cars. I'm like, oh, I want one of those. That's going to be amazing.
So crazy.
You know, you look at when you say digital now, you know, an Audi, it's a, like you said, it's CGI. You could turn that into, if you're sitting in traffic, at some point, somebody's going to make a hack so you can watch TV on your dash.
Oh, for sure.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, they've come a long way there. But, I mean, how do you beat good old-fashioned analog? It doesn't really break.
I love it. It's so crazy that we've, you know, that was like borderline. That was like the leading edge of technology. And now even digital's almost looked upon as analog at this point. You know, like digital clusters.
Yes.
It's like...
Well, there's levels of it. So
Right.
you can do fiber optic, HDMI. I mean, that's digital.
You know what? My Century has fiber optics in it, which is so crazy. So obviously fiber optics were like basically becoming a thing after World War II. So fiber optics has been around for a long time.
Well, yeah. I mean, you saw them a lot in your European cars, Mercedes,
Yeah.
BMW. So
did you ever meet Bob Velpe over in Center Harbor?
No.
So he's a longtime friend of my family's, and he's a longtime like heavy hitter car collector. He had like an underground bunker that he had his cars in. It was like an underground vault, basically.
Jeez.
And he collected Studebakers specifically.
Oh, okay.
He passed away just last year, unfortunately, but in his late 80s. You know, he lived a good long life. But he had cars at the Festival of Speed at Goodwood in England. You know, they would air freight his cars over there. Award-winning Pebble Beach cars. They'd ship them out to California for Pebble Beach, Amelia Island, etc. You know, these are like very, very high-end, like antique car collection, basically. And his brother, who lives down in Dover, who's still alive, collects vintage trucks. That's like his thing. So he's got this big post and beam barn right filled with trucks. Well, their family, both them and their father, were basically at the forefront of fiber optics outside of World War II. So late 40s into the 50s, they were basically inventing fiber optics and like new usages for them and stuff like that. So it's kind of crazy that the Velpe family was kind of, and I couldn't tell you the name of their businesses or anything like that, but they were like contractors, military contractors, inventing fiber optic applications for like military and government and stuff like that, which is pretty crazy. And that's where they made all their money. And they just happen to be car guys, and they collect.
How do we apply
cars.
this to a car?
Yeah, pretty nuts. Well, my Century. So a friend of mine who's like more of a Japanese car nerd than I am informed me about it. But my Century, it's got the front wing mirrors, obviously, the big front fender mirrors. But beyond that, as most other Japanese Toyotas do, it's got these like illuminated markers out on top of the front corner of the wings out front. Yep. And at night, when you've got your parking lights on, those are illuminated. And they kind of help you see the front corner of the car. So if you're turning, you know, around into a parking lot or onto a street, naturally in tight Japanese little cities and stuff, you'd need that. When you turn your blinker on, whatever side blinker you turned on, that gets brighter. Like that little ambient light gets brighter. Yep. And a buddy of mine in New Jersey has it's not a Celsior, it's a Cedric, I think. No, it's a Toyota. I can't remember what it is. It might be a Celsior like yours. No, it's a Crown. It's a Toyota Crown. So there was a car between the Century and your LS400. Mm-hmm. It's called a Crown Majesta, and that car never came here. It wasn't branded as a Lexus.
I've never heard of it.
Right. but it's got those markers like mine.
Sure.
And I told him, I was like, oh man, how cool are those things? He goes, yeah, how cool is it that they're fiber optics? And I was like, oh, they are? He's like, yeah. And he like sent me this like website. He goes, yeah, go read about them. It's pretty crazy. So those ambient lights that dim and get brighter on the end of those fenders on the Century in 1990 are fiber optic.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many uses for fiber optic. I mean, obviously data, audio,
right,
light,
yeah, illumination. Yeah.
To sit there and say, all right, we have this cable. Let's try and
send stuff down it.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some real, like, you're just sitting around a garage or something, and man, this would be really cool if we could get this in a car. How does that conversation start?
I don't know. Like, and you know, when we were kids, and even before we were kids, even before our time, you know, those things that you'd have on a shelf that had like the plastic fiber optic.
Yeah.
And they would light up.
Yeah.
That was like the most layman application for fiber optics, basically. I mean,
that's pretty popular now. I did one with one of my customers where it goes above his daughter's bed, and he printed the galaxy in vinyl, and we poked 1,100 holes of all the stars, and they waved and they circled, and
so he had like some sort of like ECU basically, like
yeah. So there's
computer,
a box, that it's essentially a wheel inside spinning in front of, whether it's an LED or an incandescent bulb.
Oh, so it's not like a computer.
No,
programmed. Like,
it's about as basic of the form of fiber optic as you can get.
Wow.
So
yeah.
If you can imagine a plug that was about 2.5, 3 inches in diameter, that 1,100 pieces of fiber optic were cabled into this, and it screwed in, and on the other side was a light. So as that turned, it
shined the light through.
Yep.
Wow.
So when you looked up, it looked like they were twinkling.
That's so crazy.
But
I mean, but it's like not crazy. It's like pretty simple.
But, it is. Yeah. It was just time.
Yeah. Did you do that recently?
I did that probably a year or so ago.
Huh. That's wild.
I'm horrible with pictures and
like a non-automotive application like that.
Yeah, but it was still lighting, so it interests me. It's, you know.
Yeah.
So he built this 4x8 box, and then the insulation that you would put on, say, a basement wall, which is kind of a foam.
Yep.
And that gave us the platform to put the vinyl picture on, and then that allowed us, I mean,
to poke holes through
1,100 times, and then push that fiber optic down so it was flush.
Yep.
And then
that's cool.
You turn the lights off, and sure enough, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's fiber optic light, and then you think of all the German cars like that 650 outside. So he was in Portsmouth, parked the car, valeted it. Well, in the convertibles, when you shut the convertible, the rear windows, the two triangles, and then the rear window rolls up.
Yeah.
Well, the triangles went up, the rear back window did not, and the valet didn't know that it hadn't. It rained.
Oh, great.
The Bluetooth control module is right behind that rear seat.
Oh, fantastic.
So in European cars like that, they daisy chain from themselves. So it goes from the radio to the Bluetooth module in, and then out of the Bluetooth module into the sat box, out of the sat box into the AM/FM tuner, out of the AM/FM tuner back to the radio.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously you're only as strong as your weakest link. That Bluetooth module died, took out both the sat and the AM/FM. But when you looped the fiber optic back, you completely eliminated it. You just looped it. You got your sat back, you got your AM/FM back.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, to think of fiber optic in all its ways, and we still, I mean, that car is a 2009, 10.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know it's a decade old, but.
Yeah, which is crazy. You see a car like that, and it's like, wow, that thing's a decade old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's wild the amount of application that fiber optics. I mean, think of that at the very beginning. Like, I bet they didn't even know. It was almost like the first email ever sent in, like, what was it, like the 70s, like the beginning of the internet. And it was like, who would have thought that in another 20 years, 30 years to now, like what the internet, you know, it's kind of like what fiber optics did at the beginning. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Do you know what they were sending? What was it, light first, you think? Probably.
It would have to have been.
Before it was like information, obviously.
Yeah, because not only that, but you could take the tube, light.
Exactly.
There was light.
Yeah.
But to take the tube and send data through it, you needed a send and receive.
Right.
And then to obviously break that down into whatever you were trying to send and receive.
Yeah.
So I highly doubt it was data first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially 91 in a car. I doubt there was data in those fiber optic cables.
And right. And I don't know when they started running fiber optic. I mean, maybe the Centuries had fiber optic illumination in them since the 70s when they first started making them. You know, who knows? Yeah. I haven't followed the Century, the details of that car that far back. I mean, I know a lot about that platform car because it's like one of my favorite cars. But yeah, it's crazy the amount of technology that's like been crammed into some of these cars that are obsolete now too. You see a lot of that too, that are just like,
yeah, but it's technology.
It's like, what were they thinking?
It goes like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Obsolete.
Cell phones.
Yep.
Computers.
Every year.
Yeah.
Outdated the second you get it out
every
of the
year.
box.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be every quarter.
Yeah, or more.
And it seems like, you know, when you count phones, so the Samsung Galaxy 9, the 10 came out 3 or 4 months after that, and you were like, what if I just waited?
Yeah, that's it.
So technology itself.
And mine, I mean, I know you're Team Green, I think, right? You're not on an iPhone. You're still on an Android.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because the iPhone restricts you in my world.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm not a tech nerd, so I can't go down that rabbit hole with any sort of valid argument.
I'm just talking about sharing.
Yeah.
You can from iPhone to iPhone, but if I plug that into any other device that's not
Mac, right?
Yeah, it. I'm sure you could, and I'm sure there's a hacker out there that could be like, yeah, I can break that. But it's devices. The reason they're so popular is because they're very controlled. You know what I mean? My stuff is my stuff. Nobody else can have it. Whereas Android, you can break into it like a PC.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. It's everybody's now.
Except most artists, I guess, use Mac-based stuff, computers,
because
music
Macs,
programs.
from what I understand, don't get viruses.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, yeah. Right. I mean, so for me, the majority of my friends have iPhones, and so if I was going to use, I can text friends of mine if they're on Wi-Fi. I can text friends of mine all over the world without needing like WhatsApp or some other like third-party application to message them through, without any sort of cell phone plan,
right?
Which helps. But
yeah.
Android to Android is, like you said, is good, and iPhone to iPhone or Mac based to Mac based is good as well. But
yeah, so if you plug, say, for me it was NFL Sunday Ticket. You're on the road, we're going somewhere. You plug your phone in. Android, I could share that video with my Pioneer screen or Alpine screen that was in my car.
Yeah.
If I had an iDevice, nothing against the phone, but it didn't give me that capability.
Yeah, true. I see that. And I mean, yeah, and your skill set goes deeper because you're working with all those.
There's nothing wrong with an iPhone. It's just for that application and in what I deal with. So even CarPlay, CarPlay is not something that the screen, so the Kenwood or the Sony or whoever, it's not something that company's like, oh, our CarPlay is better. Yeah. Because CarPlay only exists from your phone. When you plug your phone in, whatever company you have, it's using your phone only. That's it. So if something goes wrong with your phone, it's going to go wrong on the screen. Whereas Android Auto is a little different.
Yeah.
It uses a couple different things. And again, I'm a diehard this. It's just what I use it for.
Yeah, I get it. I don't have any argument with that. Yeah, I didn't know if you had made it to an iPhone or not. It makes sense that
I did have one. And another reason I went to the phone that I did it, and it could be for a couple other brands too, but so I accidentally walked into the water with my iPhone on me.
Accidentally walked into the water.
Yeah.
As you do.
Oh, it happens all the time. It's crazy. Yeah. So, with iPhones, you can't get that battery out. Right. You could take it apart, but it's not going to be very fast.
Yeah.
Most of your Android-based phones, you could pop the cap off, boom, unplug the battery, and possibly salvage your mistake.
Yeah.
I couldn't. It got really hot.
I had a guy replace the screen on my current phone, and I dropped it, and something was going on. Like it would, if I locked it out, I couldn't bring it back. Even any of the buttons wouldn't bring it back. And so ultimately a guy came to my house and replaced the screen. And I told him, I was like, I said, I don't know if you particularly, you personally need to be in a room all by yourself to do this, but if you don't mind, I'm going to watch you do this. Cause I've never been inside one of these newer iPhones. I've seen the insides of plenty of iPhones, but it's because I've murdered every single iPhone I've ever owned. So I've seen all the guts of all these iPhones, except the new ones.
And they're not cheap.
No, they're not. And so he took that thing apart. I was like, oh, with a heat gun and
now a lot of it's glue.
It's all glued together. Yeah. So once you open the thing up, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be more careful with that phone because there's a lot of real crazy looking stuff inside that thing.
Do you remember your first phone?
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
Bulky.
Well, I was kind of an exception because I graduated high school in 2003. At the end of 2003, I drove cross country with my best friend at the time, and we drove through almost every state. I mean, we spent 2 months on the road, and I didn't even have a cell phone. So here I was, 18 years old, 2003.
How did you do it?
Pat had a cell phone, but I was calling my girlfriend at the time and my parents from payphones because those were still around in 2003.
Good old reliable.
Yeah. So if we drove out of Durango, Colorado, up through Moab, Utah, and I remember stopping in the middle of nowhere, Utah, like between Moab and Salt Lake City, like what you see in the movies, just like vast expanse, nothing. Next gas station, 200 miles type deal. Yeah. And
we used to call those horror movies because something bad was going to happen.
The hills have eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But like finding like a random old gas station with a payphone and putting the quarter in and calling my folks. Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't have a cell phone until 2004 maybe, and it was like an LG like flip phone. So yeah, T9 word, to text or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, that was my first cell phone. I didn't have like a late 90s brick phone, which I love.
I had a bag phone.
Well, and we'll get into it, but a lot of people are asking like on Instagram about because they remember, because I tagged you and stuff. They remember that you were the one who helped me make the bag phone in the BMW. But well, I mean, so to move into personal projects, what did so I didn't know you until now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably like 2011 or 12 maybe. 2012 is when I first bought the Fintail, and I had seen you at VanWorks, the shop that you used to work for, back in the day. I'm sure I ran into you plenty of times when I'd come in the shop, like way back, but I don't remember. I remember seeing your cars around, but I didn't know you at the time. So what was the first? We could talk about the Eclipse. What came before that, though? Did you have a car that was on air or hydraulics before that? Or was that...
No.
That's where it started for you?
Yeah, and it's funny because, I was never into suspension whatsoever. So it wasn't even my car, my first adventure into suspension. It was my buddy's car. And...
Well, where did it start for you then? Like, did you have the fascination for like audio and like electronics?
I've always had a fascination with audio. I don't know why. I was very musically inclined as far as percussion.
Yeah.
So music to me always turned me on. But as far as suspension, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I mean, my car before the Eclipse was...
Did you have audio in the car before the Eclipse?
Yeah. I think I've had audio in almost all my cars. Whether it was, for those who don't know, Radio Shack used to exist, and you would buy these speakers, urban, Radio Shack had their brand, and no matter what it was always usually subwoofer first. And then, if I could figure out how to add an amp to make the speaker sound better.
Yeah.
But
so that's where it started though then. Was like maybe
audio?
Like when you were 16, were you already kind of fascinated in getting into
audio
of cars? And
I grew up in Alton. So Alton's a very small town, and it seems to shut down at 6 at night. The gas station, if you didn't get gas before 6, then tough.
Hope you don't have anywhere to go tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, there was the bay where you would go down and meet your friends. And there was a guy there who had a Camaro, and just, back then, so it was an 87 Camaro, if anybody knows that car. There's a real big well all the way in the back behind the gas tank. You had a pair of 10s there, and I was probably 14 and sitting in that car. I was like, I got to have this. This is amazing. But, I don't have a car. I don't have a license. So, as a 14-year-old boy growing up, I don't even know how I was fascinated by cars, but I knew I wanted a car the day I could drive. So my dad taught me how to drive when I was 15, and, I just was into cars at that point, what I could do to them, stuff like that. Audio was always the passion. But yeah, audio just seemed one of those things I could always tinker with. It could always change. Whereas, I don't know, I never got into big trucks. I don't know if that makes sense. I appreciated them, but...
I'm the same way. Yeah.
I don't know. 4-wheel drive, stuff like that. It was cool. My friends had them. But for me, it was always lower the better. So cars.
I hear that. Yeah.
But I didn't get into suspension work until...
Well, that Camaro probably just had audio. Do you remember like the first car that you saw that was like low to the ground and you were like, I need to do this to a car? Because I can almost pinpoint the car. Because every year that passes, it gets, those memories seem to like almost, they're fleeting in a way. But like,
yeah.
I just remember in a general way when I was in high school, seeing a lowered car drive by. I just like, I can't even describe it. I was like excited. I'm like, whoa, look at how mean that car looks. Because I'd always, my dad, always raced cars and stuff. So race cars were always lowered down a little bit. And yeah, I remember a few cars driving around town that were like lowered, and I was like, that's like where it started. I'm like, I don't know if you like maybe saw if there was like a local guy because you, what are you, like 5 years older than me, maybe something like that.
Well, you graduated in 03, so I'm assuming it was 6 because I graduated in 97.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think.
So back then, that was a huge gap back then. Now we're both kind of like living life as adults, but back then it was like two totally different worlds. Like when you were graduating in 97, it was a whole different ball game than when I was
that's why I had a
graduating.
bag phone, flip phone.
Exactly.
Phones didn't really exist.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was a lot of options. If you wanted to lower your car, what did you do? Cut the springs at that point? And it's weird because 97 is when I started getting into suspension, and coilovers existed,
right.
Full, struts with coilovers in them existed, but I don't know when coilovers started coming out. I'm assuming race cars, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You could adjust those. But
Yep.
As far as for the common man, I don't know when those started, so I'm glad I got into it when I did. It was a little easier.
Yep.
I was never into cutting coils. It just seemed like the backyard kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't put it down by any means. You got to do what you got to do. And I've seen cars with cut coils and they look amazing.
Yeah, but then you get in it and drive it and you're like, oh yeah. That's where the money goes, and you get like a proper spring rate coilover with right dampening.
Oh, this has dampening. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, it was weird because it wasn't even my car that I did it to. It was a Honda Civic. I did it in the parking lot at BJ's Wholesale Club.
Suspension?
Yeah, coilovers.
Whose car was that?
Nate Moore.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I've met Nate.
Yeah. He had a green Honda Civic 2-door.
Yeah, that was definitely before my time that you guys were doing that. The BJ's in Tilton?
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
Right in the Tire Warehouse parking lot.
Out by the road?
Yep.
That is hilarious.
And then at that point, I saw how that car sat, and I'm like, I got to do this to my car.
Awesome.
So when I first had the Eclipse, I put 16-inch wheels on. I was like, oh man, this looks good. But your fender gap was a foot, it seemed like. You could put a baby in there.
Yep.
So I don't know what the fascination was between that fender and that top of the tire, but that's where my fascination came from.
Yes.
To eliminate that.
Yep.
And then it went from, all right, now how can I tuck that tire? Because then I think I saw my first mini truck. I think it was a guy in Maine. He had a silver S10 with bags.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, you can adjust
on the fly? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got to have that now.
Was it a proper mini truck? Like sat like pretty low?
No, so it just went down.
Okay.
It didn't drag frame.
Right. But low enough, I'm sure.
Yeah, tire went into the fender, and I have no idea.
Into the truck.
Yeah. Oh my God,
dude, how crazy is that? I remember that too.
1/4-inch line, so it's like, you hit the button and 20 minutes will go by, and you're finally at all the way down.
Yep.
But just the fact that it did it, you're like, oh, I could do that, and I didn't have any idea. So bags to me weren't my first either. So it was hydraulics.
Yep.
So the Eclipse had hydraulics in it.
That's right. It did have hydraulics. I thought it was air for some reason. Wow. So what year Eclipse was it?
97.
It was the Fast and Furious second gen Eclipse, right?
Yeah, because 96 was the pre-facelift.
Yep.
So you could always tell where the reverse lights were. So 96, the reverse lights were by the license plate. 97, they were on each side of the bumper.
And this is pre-Fast and Furious. This is before.
It was,
because that came out in 2000 or something like that.
Yep.
2000 or 2001.
Yep.
So you had an Eclipse before they were cool. Well, before the masses thought they were cool, because this is before the Paul Walker Eclipse. And you put it on hydraulics.
Yeah.
This was after you put 16-inch wheels on it.
Yes. Well, no, I had 18s at one point. Chris Tacato and I don't know, had this fascination of who could get bigger wheels first. So he had 18s, like, must have been 2 days before me. Pissed me off so bad.
You had to go get some.
Yeah. So
what did he have? What was he driving at the time?
A 4-door Honda Civic. EX.
Okay.
So, 18s on a 4-door Civic. I mean, they look amazing. I was so pissed.
Yeah.
So I went out, I got 18s, and then I think is when I met the guy who owned VanWorks before, John. So he was in the hydraulics.
Yeah.
So I started working for him in 2000. So I had the Eclipse for a few years before I did any sort of on-the-fly adjustable.
Yep.
There were coilovers in it. And then I realized with the coilovers, you could spin them all the way down and the rings would fall below the strut.
Yeah.
And then the springs would fall. And then it literally sat just on the strut.
On the shock. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. So then I think
in a good way.
That went into the whole, I need to figure out how to adjust this on the fly. So John opened my world up for that. John and Bob.
That's awesome. So in 2000, is that when you put juice in the Eclipse in 2000?
Yeah.
Boy, that's awesome.
I went crazy, actually. So full stereo, 2-pump, 4-dump, 24 volts. And it was perfect because it's an import. It's not a framed car.
Right.
So you don't want to get too crazy. But just the fact that you drive down the road, lower it. And it was funny because I think in 01, they freshly paved Route 3 from Laconia to Tilton. And I remember I could get it all the way down.
Yep.
As low as it would go. It wouldn't drag unless you lifted the rear and the front hit the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
But I could drive all the way down, turn to turn. I could drive all the way from Laconia to Tilton without having to lift the car. And that feeling of just being that low to the ground.
Yep.
I can't even describe it. But it was fun. And I think it just got worse. How low. And then you hit the ground. And then I saw, do you know John Putnam?
Ooh, that name sounds familiar. I don't think I do.
So he built I want to say it was a 91 hardbody.
Yep.
Could have been a 95. I don't
Locally,
remember.
right?
He was, yeah. So he worked at Kelly Stereo before I did.
Yep.
So he built this Nissan hardbody, bagged, and the first time. So everybody's like, oh, my car is the lowest it can go. The frame hits the ground. So he came out with his hardbody, body dropped.
So was this his first go around with a mini truck? So he hadn't been cruising around town in like a slammed mini truck before.
No.
It was almost like this. It was like shock value. It's like this thing just like laid out. And
yeah. So it had your typical Chevy 5-spoke, those like fan style wheels on probably a 40 series tire, and then body dropped.
Tire. Yeah.
So
did he do the work himself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
So seeing that, I remember being at a show and some kid was talking about his truck and nobody's lower than me. And then we're like, no, there's somebody coming and he's lower than you. He's like, you can't get any lower. I'm on the frame. I'm like, okay. So he shows up, lays it out, rocker right on the ground.
Amazing.
And then just everybody was, oh my God. So that started a whole other.
What year do you think this was? 2000, 2001?
Probably, yeah. 01, 02.
That's so cool.
Might have been 03.
There was, okay. So this might realign some things between the two of us. Mm-hmm. There was, and I think I was 15 at the time. I wish I would have brought him. I should have. I've got actual photos. So before I could drive, before I was 16, I turned 16 in March of 2001. I went to a lowrider show in the Weirs, where the Lobster Pound is now, where Faro, like the Italian girl, that upper parking lot there. It was like a lowrider show, and my dad and I went to it because my dad, for some reason, if I were to trace it back to, I loved anything slammed, and it just made me feel a certain way. Like you said, like when you drove your Eclipse that low, it's like you can't really describe it. You were just like, there's just nothing better. It's like, this is so good.
Yeah, it's hard.
And so,
and to pinpoint, it's even worse.
I had always like felt that way when I'd see a lowered car. And I think my dad knew that somehow because I rode there with him. He's like, let's go. There's like a lowrider show in the Weirs. We should go. And so we went. And I'll show you. You probably know because there was a red short bed S10 there, laid out, 5-spoke wheels. I've got like disposable camera developed photos. I still have them at home.
What's that?
Every now and then I'll go through them and I'll be like, wow. Like I try to put myself back in that place because I'd never seen anything like that before. This S10, it had like a body kit on it, but the body kit like laid on the ground. Then there was a hard body there, and it might have been Nate, right? Nate. So he said his name was?
No, John Putnam.
Oh, John. Yeah. It might have even been his. And I might have a photo of your Eclipse. What color was your Eclipse again?
Black.
Oh, maybe. But then there was that like Intrepid, that like white and blue. Oh, Stratus, that Dodge Stratus on like Lexanis or something. They were real Lexanis too, weren't they? Oh my goodness, dude! So
Amethysts, Lexani Amethysts. I remember those.
Oh my goodness! So
that was a good wheel
with Rockford, Fosgate, everything in the trunk.
12s. Yep.
Yes, it was 6. 3 facing out and 3 facing down.
Yep.
I remember, dude. That's
when I worked at Kelly's.
Okay, did you do that install?
I didn't. No, that was under construction. So that I would assume. So I started at Kelly's in '98-ish.
Okay.
So he brought that in, and it took a while because he just kept adding to it. So then Alpine came out with a flip screen, and it's one of those things where it wasn't done for a while because his tastes changed. But yeah, to see that car.
What was the guy's name?
Jim Bro.
Yep. Jim Bro.
And then he had a brother Josh who had a Probe. And I remember, you lift because they had flip lights.
Yep.
They just lifted a little bit.
Oh, first gen Probe. Okay.
Yeah. And we just did the round, like almost fog light looking lights.
Yep.
Too high, too low. I remember wiring that. And that car, he had a bunch of motor work done to it. That car was amazing.
That's so cool.
But
I remember that Stratus blowing my mind because I'd never seen anything like it. And now you and I've talked about that car in the past as like adults. And it might have been you saying like, well, the paint really wasn't that great. The transition from the
tough
white to the blue.
because he wasn't happy with it. It's one of those things where he had an expectation of, a fade of some sort.
Right.
I just don't think the guy who did it either understood what he was trying to get as far as the transition or just maybe didn't know how to do it at all.
For those listening, there was here in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, which wasn't a huge scene. Because as far as I'm concerned, you were part of like the OG scene because there was nobody else as you're saying, like in the mid to late 90s, as you were getting into this, a few years before me. I mean, one could argue I got into it in like 01, 02, 03, but I didn't really get into it hands on until 08, 09. Until I started because I was riding BMX. That was like after I graduated high school in 03, 01 to 09. My life was music and BMX, and that was it. Like I was into Volkswagens. I had Mark IIs and Mark I's, but I never really modified them. I just had them because I liked them. But the feeling I had about slammed cars and just wild-looking cars was there since 2000, 2001. Because this show must have been 2000 when I'd seen the Stratus. I'd seen the Stratus around town, but I must have been 15 when I went with my dad to that car show. So that's like the beginning for me. But there was a Dodge Stratus that drove around town, as we were just talking about, that was like white and blue, two-tone, like horizontally or vertically. It was like the front part of the car was white, back part of the car was like blue. And it had a body kit, like a full body kit with a wing.
Yep.
With Lexanis on it.
Amethyst. Gorgeous wheel. I'd still rock them today.
With like, yes. Well, they've come full circle now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because for a while, that car in the mid-2000s to like 2010 through like 2012, that was almost like to like some of us Euro guys. Some of us Euro guys, it was like too loud. You know what I mean? Like the body kit with the big crazy wing just for the sake of like having, you know what I mean? Like there's no function to it. It was all form, I guess. But that car changed my life. I saw that car with the body kit and it looked lower because of the body kit.
Sure.
And then the rubber band tires with like the Lexanis. And then I saw it at this car show with the trunk open. I've got a photo of the trunk setup.
Holy crap. With
the Rockford. That's why I remember it was Rockford Fosgate.
Yeah.
And I remember the interior and I was like, this is insane. And I hadn't found my way yet. I wanted something slammed because there was a couple of trucks there, a hard body, an S10. I think, that Stratus, I was trying to think of any other vehicle that was cruising around town back then that really made an imprint on me. But it was mostly everything at that show, which obviously people from all over the place had come to. But so you had your Eclipse. Mm-hmm. You did hydraulics in it, audio, the works. You kind of went all through it. Did you do, so we'll get into some of the vehicles that you've worked on, some of our friends locally. But like, when did you get into? It was probably when you first started working at Kelly's. When you started working with like fiberglass and wood and like sub box enclosures. You know, like custom
Kelly's, yeah.
Because you've done some custom interior work that's like pretty wild too. So
well, you don't want to limit yourself to say the trunk,
right?
You know what I mean, you want to see what you can do. So, Dave Brent,
yep, good friend of both of ours.
He has an S10,
which he still has.
Yeah.
Is that the one from like way back in the day?
Yeah, he bought it new.
Like Ryan's?
97.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I still have never seen that truck in person.
Which one, Dave's?
Dave's.
He brought it here last year?
I did see it when he brought it here.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm trying to get it back here.
Okay, so continue. Yeah, so Dave Brent.
So in an S10 97, you have the radio. It was din and 3/4. It was like a little larger than normal.
Yeah.
And right above it, you had these two vents, which were round, half moonish vents.
Yeah, second gen S10.
So he bagged that. We took those vents out, and what can I do to get gauges in there? You have your front, your rear, and tank pressure. So we put 3 gauges, dyed it the same color as the dash, textured it, and it's like that today. But that's how you don't want to go out and just buy what everybody else has.
Yeah.
And he's like, just see what you can do. And I'm like, well, I'm going to learn from this. So I'm going to try and do something that nobody else has. And it was just, you try to do that everywhere. Doors, dash, trunk, obviously. But yeah, fiberglass was one of those things that I saw it somewhere. A guy from Kelly's had built this fiberglass sub enclosure. And again, kind of like you with the Stratus, a whole other dimension of how you can customize something to make it your own.
Yep.
So yeah, fiberglass was something I dove into heavily. I did a lot of fiberglass boxes. Probably killed a lot of brain cells because it wasn't one of those, oh, let me crack the door.
Yeah, or put a 3M respirator on or whatever.
No, I don't even know if we had those.
Yeah.
N95 masking. You think I heard of that before this whole COVID thing?
Yeah, seriously.
No.
That's crazy because for me, I've told you this because you helped me repair those Racing Dynamic side skirts that we found on that Euro E23 that ultimately Keith painted, our friend Keith, and they found their way onto my 7 Series. And as I told you when we were working on that stuff, like I've never really worked with fiberglass, and it bums me out because I see the stuff that you do, the stuff that you've done 20 years ago, and I'm like, wow, man, like
it's crazy.
Yeah. 20 years ago was 2000. That's just so nuts to me. But like, I have yet to work with fiberglass in that realm of like customization. Like I've worked with fiberglass and like resin and stuff to like repair stuff, but like to dive in, that's where that leather patience, like I appreciate that. Well, people would argue that I have attention to detail, which I feel like I do, but not at that level. Like you look at the entire interior of the car and you're like, I'm going to change all that. For me, I'm like, it looks fine stock. I'll just keep that. But like, but to dive in and to like make stuff, like you said, you made that 3 gauge pod, but like textured it and made it look OEM.
Right.
And, that's where
I think that's always been the fascination is, you want it to be different, but you don't want it to be obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, look at that thing hanging off the dash, or that sub enclosure just all mangled.
Yeah.
You try and keep that whole function and form. I mean, believe me, there's builds out there that are crazy and they look amazing, but they're just not something I would put in my car. Yeah. I would build it for somebody, don't get me wrong, but
right.
Yeah, fiberglass is one of those aspects that, somebody's looking for a certain look. That's a tool in your toolbox. So if you don't get into it and you don't use it, then you'll never have that as an option to, take care of somebody's needs. In this industry, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Jack of all trades, master of none type thing. So, yeah, fiberglass it's fun. It's nasty.
But that's still something I want to like get skilled on because it has come up in plenty of cases in some projects of mine where I'm like, man, I wish I was better at, because now's not the time to start because now it counts. That's why I've come to see. Sure. That's why we've worked on a lot of projects together to where it's like, I should have been taking the time before this project to learn all that stuff, but like, and there's still time obviously, but I was the same way when it came to like welding. When I first started welding, it was like I wasn't working in a shop welding on stuff all day, every day, all the time. The next time I needed to weld something, it was when it counted. It was on my project, and it was like, oh, I should have been practicing. I should have been. So like, that's where I envy people like you and other friends of mine who work in those industries, to where when you pick up your own personal project, it's like you're already a professional. It's like, let's go.
Yeah, but you got to think I practiced on my own stuff just for that reason. Yeah, so when it didn't come out, because there's no way, nobody's perfect. It's not going to come out perfect the first time, the second time, or third. So as many times as you can get it under your belt, and then by that time you're going to get paid for it. That like you said, that's when it's going to account. And Dave's pod, I don't know the condition of it now, but that would be kind of something I would look at. I built that 20 years ago. So
wow.
Depending on the condition, that would tell me, did I use the right materials? Did I use the right fiberglass? And, to go from there. So to do it as long as some of these people have been doing it, that's what you use to kind of gauge, because you can do crazy stuff, but if you're not using either the right tools or the right materials, again, you'll come up with a subpar, product. So
right.
That's what I look at. It's always practicing. It's never perfection.
So is that how you met Dave, or did you know Dave from way back?
No, I met Dave through audio.
Okay.
So he was into, big speakers. We would go to, back then they were just SPL contests. Now there's different names.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a Cavalier Z24.
Before the S10.
Yep. 215s. And I think I met him through somebody else. And it was one of those, oh, you have a friend that's into audio? Yeah. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's how we met, was audio. And I think that was probably 98. So we've known each other for 22 years. That's crazy. So
2000, he had the S10. Did you help do the suspension in the S10? Or did he? Who did the suspension in that?
So that was so when adjustable suspension came out, such as bags or hydraulics, and it started becoming a lot more popular, shops, mom and pop shops started opening, or, you had that friend that was like, oh, I could bag your car for you. So he had brought it to somebody, and again, it could have been expectation, but it didn't work properly, and it didn't do what he wanted it to do. Yeah. So at that point, Dave's a really smart guy. He looked at, all right, this, and this. All right, here's the problem here. I'm going to do this. And then it just kind of escalated from there. And then, there was a fascination, I think, with him that it had to go really fast. So
that's where, because I'll never forget the first time Dave told me, because, this whole time I didn't know, I'd met Dave.
Now, when I say I had to go really fast, I mean the suspension, not the car.
I know. That's what I'm getting at. And that's what everyone listening is going to understand here in a second. Like, so I first met Dave through like you and Lisa and your wife, Lisa, and just like that crew of people, and like Chris Tacato and I hanging out at VanWorks in like 2012 is back when I first met you guys and became like friends with you guys. And so Dave would always come around, but as you mentioned, like that S10's been locked away for years and years. So I never knew he had one. And then when we got talking about that particular truck, and Dave's hilarious. Like Dave's like, the way Dave tells a story is just, he could be a stand-up comic. Like he could stand up on a stage.
Because he's subtle about it.
Yeah,
it creeps up on you.
But he has I can see him in my mind's eye right now telling me a story, and it's hilarious. Like just the way he tells a story is like not just captivating, so it reels you in, but like it's hilarious too. But he was telling me about the truck, and he was talking about how it had 3/4 inch airline in it, and I'm like, 3/4 inch airline?
So garden hose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To give you an idea of size.
So I was like, now this is coming from someone who understands the mini truck scene, but has never built a mini truck. So all the cars I've had on air have been like Euro cars, like big, elegant luxury cars or whatever. So 1/4 inch line. I've had 3/8 line in 2 cars, and I put reducers in them because it was just way too fast with 3/8 line. So you've got 1/4 inch, 3/8 line, 3/8 that was like too fast for me. Then you got 1/2 inch line. Then you got Mr. Dave Brent coming in with 0.75, like 3/4 inch. And he's telling me how he used to, like, while driving, like be driving low and air it up. So like he would air it up, and it would air up so fast that it would buck the front wheels off the ground. It would like it was on hydraulics.
Yeah.
And he'd air it out while it was in the air and slam the thing on the ground.
Oh yeah, it was violent.
And the way he tells these stories is just so funny. But you're right. So anyway, yeah, you're saying like he wanted to be fast. Well, 3/4 inch line is fast.
And you got to think, so when just like everything else, it evolved slowly. So 1/4 inch, 3/8, and I think half was like unheard of.
Yeah.
And Dave's like, no, I need
not fast enough.
How can I make this faster? Now, 3/4 inch line wasn't something that you called, say, a Bag Riders or Little Rider Depot.
None of that stuff was around, right?
Yeah, because it wasn't popular. So you know, if nobody's buying it, why have it?
Yeah.
But I want to say he waited for it. Got the valves. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say, what do those fittings look like going into the airbags?
Oh, they're amazing.
Like,
and then
because most airbags at largest have a 1/2 inch port.
Right. No,
so
you've got the bags that were 3/4 too.
Oh, they were. I was gonna say, because you've got a 3/4 inch line that ends up at a 1/2 inch hole at the bag. You might as well just have a 1/2 inch line.
No, it was 3/4.
Oh wow.
So then he realized that, you know, for fitment purposes, if you know the suspension of an S10, it's a pocket that's in the frame rail.
Right.
So you normally have to
in the front.
Yeah. So Dave figured out a way to get it through the frame because it had to be a straight shot for its maximum capacity.
No elbows.
No elbows.
Yeah, exactly.
So 3/4 inch line. I mean, to bend the 3/4 inch line on top of it.
Was it a hard line that went to the bag?
No, it was all
like plastic?
ABS. Yeah.
Wow.
DOT, whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, that thing just it was compressed. So you couldn't do a couple compressors with a couple 3-gallon tanks. He was nitrogen. From bedside to bedside.
Yeah.
And that combination.
Oh my God.
I don't know anybody else. Oh, it was amazing.
It's a bomb.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Wow. That is amazing.
But that's how Dave's always been. You know what I mean? You can go halfway or that's it. I'm going all the way.
Wow. That's crazy.
And he did. It was amazing.
It's an extended cab, right?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. I have seen that truck.
Yep.
Wow. That is nuts. So that guy, John, he had the hard body. David Brent had his S10. You had the Eclipse.
So my boss at VanWorks had a 91 town car. And that's how I got into Juice. So they were all into Juice.
He had a what?
91 town car.
Oh, Lincoln.
Yeah.
I think I saw that car.
White with a blue top.
Yes.
So that's obviously...
That was on
You're
Juice?
a product of your environment.
That was on
was
Juice?
Juiced.
Okay. Yeah.
So then it was, maybe you should juice the Eclipse. I'm like, oh, that'd be amazing. So
Ryan Arsenal actually messaged me yesterday, another friend of ours, and you knew him before I knew him, but if we talked about the Eclipse, he wanted to make sure we talked about the Eclipse, which we obviously were, but he wanted to talk about Old Orchard Beach and blowing oil pans, and how many times you blew oil pans, or that oil pan.
It's one of those things where you're like, I will never do that again.
What year was that?
What, the Eclipse?
No. Was it one
Orchard?
trip? Was that
it was one trip in particular that I remember. I'll never forget it.
He made it sound like it was one trip to Old Orchard Beach and you like blew your pan like numerous times.
Well, it was one of those things. So you wanted to cruise a strip of some sort.
Yeah.
You and your friends.
Yep.
Just slow, so everybody saw what you had, what you've been working on.
Oh, dude, you're speaking my language.
Right. So in New Hampshire, since we're all uppity, we tried to do it in Hampton.
Yeah. The strip in Hampton, right on the beach.
Police walk that strip.
Yeah.
And since you don't move very fast, not really getting away.
And back then, I mean, what year do you think that was, the Old Orchard trip?
90.
Oh, before 2000?
No. If I had Juice, it was after 2000. So
okay.
01.
Okay. So back then, having a vehicle on air suspension, especially, or hydraulics, that looked pretty loud visually, that long ago in New Hampshire was like a big, like...
Oh, yeah.
There was no forgiveness.
And I don't even think it was because there was a law against it, which I'm sure there was, but it was, if it was fun, it felt like it was illegal.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They're like, how's that going up and down? That can't be legal. You know
exactly.
what I mean? So,
yeah, they were very, very strict here with all that stuff.
And then it became, well, in my mind, I wanted to justify it somehow, that if you didn't use it, it wasn't illegal. So if you saw a cop coming, you left it alone.
Right.
You were at that height, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But if he saw you use it, then it gave him means to pull you over.
Right.
So, you go to Hampton, you're looking around. No. All right, cool. Let's lower it all the way down. Let's see.
Yep.
but I forgot who got caught. I want to say it was Nate Moore with his Civic, and he had a huge stereo, and it's just you just got too much.
Yep.
Yelled at Hampton, so we're like, Old Orchard Beach, you can do anything.
Yeah.
So sure enough, we go up there, we're adjusting our cars, and you shouldn't lift the back all the way up and drop the front all the way down because.
And I'm sure that Eclipse had an aluminum oil pan.
Yeah, I had a couple of them.
But aluminum, not steel, right?
Well, the first one was steel.
Okay.
Now
because I'm a fellow oil pan destroyer, so
yeah,
so
it's weird how that works.
So the steel, I've had numerous old Volkswagens with steel pans that literally were the shape of stop signs and still never leaked. I'd have to do a gasket every now and then, but that thing took punch after punch after punch, and it was just like dented everywhere and never broke. And the first car, I had a Mercedes 190, the one I had on air, that had an aluminum pan. And even though it was on air, I blew that pan like 3 times because it was no forgiveness. You just scraped it just right and you gouged it through the aluminum and now you're leaking oil. So anyway, I was just curious if the Eclipse, so you're in Old Orchard Beach, you're clearly stadium driving it, stadium seating.
Yep.
Get the rear all the way up, front down.
It was like a rap song.
And you hit
face down.
And you hit a manhole cover, I'm sure, or something like that.
I don't even remember what it was, to be honest with you. And I didn't think anything of it because, when you're in that scene, bumps,
you're hitting everything,
drags. Yeah, you just eventually get kind of used to it.
Yeah.
So it was just whatever it was another bump I hit. And then all of a sudden the oil light came on.
Fantastic.
So then you realize, all right, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
I should
and you're
probably
going
stop.
slow enough to where you don't have a bunch of smoke out behind you probably.
No, and you couldn't smell it. It was just, that dummy light came on, you pull over, you see a puddle starting to form. So, that was the first time I've ever done it. And I'm like, what do I do? And somebody's like, you got to go home. So I stopped at the store to get oil, and I drove from Old Orchard Beach back to the Lakes region. And when I got there, there must have been just the thickest film on the back of the car.
Oh,
because it was going down the body and just
yeah,
waving up on the back.
Yep.
And it was just nasty. But yeah, so everybody got to stay there and have fun.
Yep.
And stupid me drags a hole in his oil pan. I had to go home. I was pissed.
You didn't have to. You could have just. Well, yeah, you didn't want to be spilling oil all over Old Orchard Beach, I guess. But was that? Did you see where? Did you split the pan open?
No. It was just.
Was it steel? Do you remember?
Yeah, it had to have been steel at that point.
Yeah. So you probably blew the gasket or something.
No, I want to say for some reason the drain plug was at an angle.
Oh,
so it was flat, and then there was a nub from the drain plug. Yeah. And I think it nicked that.
Yep. And stripped the threads out probably.
Yeah.
And yep.
And then that was it. You had to drive. That was it. I forgot who I had with me, but they're like, "Are we gonna make it home?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've never run into this."
We're both going through this for the first time.
You pull over, you put some oil in it, the oil light goes out. You're like, "All right, good."
Yeah.
Next thing you know, 2 miles later, oh no.
Yeah.
And I'm not a motor guy, so I have no idea. What can this car do with what amount of oil?
Exactly.
So, but to get home, we got it fixed.
Yeah, the motor didn't have a new knock or wrap or anything in it. Yeah. Well, that's good.
Again, I'm not into speed, so it's not like I ever tested that motor.
Yeah. So. But still, I mean, that's because that's the life I ended up living later on with the Euro cars and stuff, like blowing pans. And it got to the point where with that 190, even though it was on air, it had an aluminum pan, so I kept quick steel with me in my toolbox. I kept extra oil,
right,
as you do with a Euro car anyway, and kept sandpaper, brake clean, as with all the other hand tools, and air PTC air fittings and stuff.
Yeah, those are important.
Extra airline. Oh yeah, unions. Yeah, quarter to quarter PTC unions, and just in case, and more than twice, I had to fix that oil pan on the side of the road. I'd hit it because I just, in my opinion, because all my first cars were all static, and I was a static warrior for the longest time. It was like any set of coilovers I ever bought for any car, before they even went in the car, they came out of the box, took them apart, helper spring went in the garbage, take the second perch off and lower the perch all the way down, cut the bump stop in half, and then put them in the car.
Oh, you actually cut the bump stop. Well, you should just took them out.
Yeah, some of them I took out.
A little out of protection.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, it just rode, at that point, it didn't even matter if I had a bump stop or not, because you're just bottoming out on the shock the whole time.
Yeah, there was definitely a fine line.
So, I mean, it was just, it just, in a road like garbage, and nobody in my friend group, even knew anything about spring rates or dampening or it just as low as it could go. Oh, it runs like a dump truck, but who cares? And so I lived that life for a long time, and was like static or nothing, and just dealt with breaking pans and stuff.
But I get it, but
then
that's a tough life to live.
But it was a poor life too. You know what I mean? I didn't have the money for air, so I was like, I got the money for the coilovers, and I've got the money to make motor mount spacers and raise the motor, put the oil pan up out of the way, and reroute brake and fuel lines and whatever else might be down there that might be vital. And
see, I didn't think of that until adjustable.
Yeah,
because we were going for frame.
Well, and then once I got into air, so basically that was the precursor to my air. Once I went air, it was like, now I can just drive low and park lower. It wasn't all about like, I'll drive at stock height and then just air it down.
So it was about, stance and appearance.
Yes.
Yeah. So people walk by and be like, whoa.
Because I had just spent the last like 4 years or however long it was, like trying to drive every car I had on the frame or subframe or whatever, static. And now that I had air, it was like, well, now I can still drive like that, but now I can actually like lay it on the ground when I park. So that's why I kept blowing pans in my 190, because I'd just be driving down the highway with it like super low and then miss that one bridge expansion joint that was coming up.
The expansion joints.
And just blow the pan and have to like pull off to the side of the road.
Yep.
Jack it up.
I used to carry a bar of soap. Did you ever know that trick?
Yep.
You rub it against.
Yep.
And just keep driving.
Glugs up. Yeah. It's like a paste almost.
Yeah.
But I'd keep quick steel to actually fix it.
So the quick steel,
like
the other one?
Like the epoxy quick steel.
Yeah. What was the other one? JB Weld.
JB Weld.
So I would keep JB Weld, but the JB Weld, so that happened again in Carlisle, Pennsylvania at a show.
With the Eclipse?
Yeah. So I dragged it. Again, oil light comes on. You're like, oh my God.
Oh, so let's talk about that. So you drove, because I went to Carlisle a handful of times with my dad for the muscle car meet. So I know when I was a young kid, I knew like that drive, because it was like an 8-10 hour drive out there.
Oh yeah.
So you drove the Eclipse. I'm sure Decato went.
Yeah. So
for that whole crew, Dave Brent maybe.
I'm trying to think if Dave Brent took. Yeah, Dave Brent took his S10 at one point.
What year was this Carlisle? Early 2000s still probably.
Yeah. 0102. I mean, we did a lot of shows, or we tried to, because you spend all that time on your car, you want to show as many people as you can. Yeah. I don't even know how we got put on to the Carlisle show, because like you said, it's a ways away. It's a significant drive.
Yeah.
But so we had a car club. And I think it just was like, hey, there's this big show. It's a weekend show.
Yeah.
This camping. I mean, it was just like Bike Week back in the day, but for cars.
Yeah. Well, and not just cars, but like slammed cars.
Oh yeah, no, it was sky's the limit.
Yeah,
and to be out of the area, because up here in the Northeast, I think we're a little sheltered as far as when things happen here.
Yep. Yeah, we get it like late.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and points south, those guys were doing like there was more mini truck stuff going on. Obviously out west, but for the East Coast, yeah, like. It wasn't that prominent up this way.
No. It was eye-opening, to say the least.
Yep.
So.
I felt the same way with like the Euro scene, because my first year to H2O, which you did with me and a girl I was dating at the time. What was it? 2013.
13.
Yeah, when I had my Fintail, the 1960 Mercedes, because you sat in a Wawa parking lot with me on the way home.
Yes.
For like 2 hours.
Yeah.
For hours.
No.
Because okay, so 2013 H2O.
Yeah.
Lisa, your wife, comes from like a Euro Volkswagen kind of enthusiasm.
She loves them.
She loves that. So she had not done an H2O before?
Oh, no, she's done plenty of them.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So you hadn't.
Well, she had done, even before that, and I'm sure you're aware of it, a show called Waterfest.
Yeah, I've been to
hear the descriptions of how those shows were, very similar. Weekend shows or week shows, and, lots of cool cars from all over.
Right.
And, just to share that with people and be so H2O is what, 10 hours, 12 hours?
12, yeah. It turns into 12 with like stops and traffic and construction and all that. So we went, so you guys took Lisa's car, right? The Mark 6?
Well, we took the Camry the first year, so that was 13.
Your Camry. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we hadn't built her car yet.
Okay, so you took your Camry, which was awesome, by the way. I love that thing. That, speaking of Eclipse, that was on modified Eclipse coilovers.
It was 2000 Eclipse coilovers.
Hilarious. So that car looked awesome. I've got anyone that knows me well enough knows that I love when I say new, I mean like 09 through now, basically.
Yeah.
Like new Camrys and Honda Accords. Like the new Honda Accord, like the new ones. I can't Dude, I love the new Honda Accords
They're
so
aggressive.
much. So much. And they're big. They almost look like an Audi. They almost look like an A7
I think,
almost.
yeah, Audi kind of was that car that a lot of manufacturers were like, that's a good looking car.
We got to make something like that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So you took your Camry, and I trailered my Fintail down. And on the way home, we stopped at a Wawa, which is like the last like Wawa that I always stop at before you get on like the Jersey Turnpike. And I as you know, I load up with all the Wawa sweet teas, raspberry teas, like that's because it's like 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours from here to the closest Wawa, and that's not acceptable for us New Hampshire guys. Like I've driven to New Jersey basically for Wawa, and then while we were there, we're like, well, let's just ride. We took a few friends with bikes and stuff. Sure. We're like, well, we'll just ride. But basically, we went to Jersey for Wawa. Yeah. So we stopped at this Wawa. I've got the Fintail, which was bagged on my trailer, aired out, and we're just fueling up, getting the usual stockpile of Wawa goods. And this older guy, I don't know, maybe in his 60s, comes walking up, and I can't remember what he said to me first, but he's basically like, what year is it? I'm like, oh, it's a 60. And it was clear he knew Mercedes. And he'd said, I've got a couple old ones myself, and basically was like, well, what'll buy it? And he's not the first to do that to me. Everywhere, I mean, I'd be fueling the thing up even in Meredith, in my hometown. Anywhere, people would be like, is it for sale? And I'm like, no. And I had people go as far as like, what do you take for it? I'm like, whatever. And half those people aren't serious.
Right. Buyers are liars.
So he was basically like, what'll buy it? I'm like, it's not for sale. And he's like, I'll buy it. And I was like, I'm sure you would.
It's like a decent proposal situation.
Yeah, and it's like it's aired out on the trailer. To any other old timer, it looks broken. To like someone like us, we're like, well, that thing looks sweet.
Right.
But he's like, would you take $10,000 for it? And I'm like, now I had been offered $10,000 from someone who would have given me $10,000 for that car, and that was a lot more than I had into it. And I was like, no, it's not for sale. It's not for sale. And he was like, I'll give you $11,000 for it. And I was like, you haven't even heard the thing run. And he goes, well, does it run? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, there you go. And I was like,
we're good.
This guy seems like a real easy buyer. And so I was like, I don't know. And I was dating Pauline at the time. She was with me, and she was very supportive of like my car issues. So she was like,
oh, is that what you call them?
She jumped right in. She was like, it's not for sale. Like, take a walk, bud, type deal. And you guys are sitting in your car at this point. I can't remember who else. I think it was just the two of us, like the two groups of us. I can't remember if there was anyone else.
I don't think so.
So then he's like, I'll give you $12,000 for that car. And I'm like, listen, man. And I think he could tell that I was trying to like see through him. He goes, I live right down the street. My bank is local. We'll go right now and I'll get you cash right now for this car. He goes, I literally live a mile down the road here. And I was like, oh, and I was like, man, I remember calling my dad because he helped me build the car. It's the first car I ever bagged, and he helped me with some of the fabrication on that car. And I was like, hey, so I'm in Delaware, and there's a dude here that's like trying to give me $12,000 for the Fintail. And he's like, well, did you take it? And I was like, no, I just don't know what to do. So anyway, we held you guys there for like 2 hours as I'm trying to decide what to do.
It was fun. Yeah.
And then, so finally I was like, listen, man, it's not for sale. I appreciate it. And he gave me his number, and he's like, well, let me know. And so we hit the road and headed home. And ultimately, to finish that story, I'm glad I didn't sell it that day, because it wasn't but a few months later, or that following spring, that we shot it for Mercedes Magazine. So my buddy Dan Crosley. So the magazine feature may have never obviously come to fruition if I'd sold it.
Yep.
And so it turned out. And I ultimately got, at the end of the day, after selling the parts car and some other parts I had for all that stuff, I ultimately made $12,000 on the car anyway. So, and a friend of mine, Brendan, who's now a friend of mine, owns the car now in Pennsylvania and loves the car. Indeed, he had it at his wedding, and they drove off in it. Wow. And I had always said, when I own the car, I'm going to get married in this thing if I own it when I get married. And that's what Brendan did. So anyway, so you guys went to Carlisle, and much like H2O, basically, it's like a 10, 12-hour drive for like a short week type event.
Yeah.
You drove the Eclipse out. And did Ryan Arsenault go?
No, so Ryan had a pickup truck. So this was Car Carlisle.
Oh, okay.
So there was two. There was a Car Carlisle, which was your imports, that kind of rule of scene. There was domestic. There was your Cavaliers and stuff. But then there was a truck Carlisle. So You know, Ryan went to that.
But for
Putnam went to that.
For like mini trucks or for like everything truck?
I think it's everything truck.
Okay.
So there was a mini truck
that show.
class.
Yep. Yeah.
Which I don't think, I mean, from Ryan's truck and Putt's truck, I mean, those trucks were just amazing.
Yeah.
And
well, and even those who are watching on YouTube, I think it's out of frame with the video, but there's a placard right above us here. And what magazine was that? Street Trucks magazine, 2007.
Yep.
So our buddy Ryan Arsenal has, I mean, that truck holds up today, man.
Oh yeah.
And he still has it. It's sitting in that that phase in like a sea container, or like I said before, like a shed next to his garage.
But that's kind of like a resume now at this point.
It is. And you did all that interior work too, didn't you?
I did the inside. He did all of the suspension, the framework.
Yeah, but you did all that crazy fiberglass like center console.
Oh, yeah, that was probably like at that time when I started getting comfortable with it, and I'm like, oh, I can build a door panel for you.
Wow.
So,
and I've seen that truck in person.
He came up with all the ideas: the flames in the doors, the sub in the console, the point armrests, the skull in the dash.
Yeah.
I mean,
that truck. I mean, even just the stance of the truck, though. What?
Oh yeah.
Was that on 20s?
No, that should be 22s in that picture.
I forgot that Ryan's S10 laid body.
Yeah. So what year?
07 is when that feature came. So,
yeah.
But that was probably shot in 06.
Oh, easily. Yeah. Because I remember.
I forgot that truck was
so. Might be 24s.
Oh my!
Because he did 24s at one point. So
I know people watching on YouTube can't see that. We're like, we're bent over backwards.
We're honestly just looking at a wall.
We're looking up at the ceiling because this placard's behind us.
So I went to a show called Showfest.
Yes.
You ever hear of that?
Yeah, in Kentucky.
This one was in Mississippi.
That's right. That's where it still is held. Yeah, not Kentucky, Mississippi. Yep.
So
huge, like everything,
unbelievable.
Everything.
So
like mini truck.
Laconia Bike Week.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, but on steroids and with cars instead.
Yeah, but like that style stuff, like bagged audio.
Oh, I mean, from one extreme to the next. So that's where I first saw Extensive Metalworks.
Yep.
As you know, you've seen the show.
Yep.
This was 05.
Yeah.
So he had built that Chrysler 300, the Hummer, and then there was a kid there at the actual show, not at the actual just dragging and stuff, that had an S10 on 24s and was gloating that he was the first one on 24s.
In 05.
In 05.
Yeah.
So that I bet you was the 24s. I'm trying to remember.
And again, people on YouTube can't see that photo, but the top of that placard is a front 3/4 shot of this truck. And I am willing to bet that is 24s because it's tucking lug nuts up front.
Yeah.
And so that issue, it says right there, Street Trucks magazine came out. That issue hit newsstands in April of 07, which means that photo shoot was at least 06. Because most of those magazines were 8 to 10 to even 12 months out.
Right.
Usually in queue.
Yeah.
So that truck, I bet, Ryan's probably listening to this right now, screaming through his speakers, being like, they were 24s.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks 24s. So that S10.
So those are Bond Speed Palisades, if I remember correctly.
And it's like
I used to love those.
So this is the thing about me and my mini trucking. I always loved the suspension work that went into that stuff. Because I always wanted to go as low as possible. What I had a hard time getting into, because my dad always raced, like when I was a kid, he raced a Mark I Rabbit. So he had Volkswagens.
Oh, wow.
Well, he collected late 60s GM muscle cars. So I was like, I had this like two ends of the spectrum exposure. So I was exposed to like the Camaros, the Chevelles of the late 60s, big block, lots of horsepower, V8, burnout machine type rigs.
Yeah.
But every weekend at the track, I watched him annihilate everybody in a Mark I Rabbit. Now, when I turned 16, which was more affordable?
Oh, yeah.
The Chevelle SS is $396 or the Mark I Rabbit. So I had both of those spectrums, though, boasted simplicity. Like muscle cars and most muscle cars, to generalize it,
right,
and the European automotive scene are simplistic. Like most European cars, and this was 15 years ago in 05, were like OEM plus stuff. Like if you had a body kit on your Rabbit, it was an OEM plus body kit that like Vestatech or BBS or Zender or somebody
I'm slowly starting to learn what that means.
Yeah. But these companies that just customize these cars, you could buy them from the factory with these body kits on them.
Right.
But then they became rare and you wanted to seek after them. But the thing that didn't turn me on to mini trucking, aside from the suspension work and the height of it, the fact that these trucks would touch the ground, the body blew my mind. But I never got into most of the paint or the wheels, like the billet, like the 90s, like billet wheels. I'm into that stuff now because of like the nostalgia aspect of it. But I loved Ryan's truck so much and still do because that's a 5-spoke wheel. It's overall a 5-spoke, but each spoke has like, it's
3.
Yeah, like different spokes or 4. Yeah, 3. Yeah.
So
it's a big 5-spoke.
I'm a huge fan of 5-spokes.
Me
like
too.
the Camaro wheels.
Yep.
I don't know why, but those are just.
Yep.
And then 4-spoke didn't turn me on. 3-spoke, do you remember those?
Oh yeah. Well, and
TriStars.
There's still a lot of European, like a company called Brabus from Europe made a 3-spoke split wheel, like a 3-spoke wheel, which are like amazing looking wheels, And a lot of Japanese, like there's a company called Advan. And they made like a real crazy 3-spoke, like small wheel, like a 14, 15 inch that like you see on a lot of these like Japanese cars. Mm-hmm. But Ryan's truck, man, that thing laid body on 24s. 20, yeah, those have to be 24s.
Yeah,
I bet it says, we'll read the article.
Yeah.
I have to know. I'm getting up. For those of you listening on Spotify and iTunes, I am getting up here to look at this. It had to have said.
You would hope so.
22s.
All right, really?
20. It says, yeah. Yeah, 22s. That's still pretty crazy.
I was gonna say I could have swore. So he must have done the 24s after that.
Yeah, because that truck did have 24s on it at one point, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, in 05 and 06, that truck was laying body on 22s, which was still a crazy feat. 15 years ago. The amount of work needed to like be able to do that is pretty crazy.
Well, there's so many factors. I mean, obviously your rear wheels don't come into play unless you have independent, but it's turning, it's firewall, it's the components that come on those fenders from the factory, your windshield washer fluid, your batteries,
everything
they're all in the fender.
Yeah, so. Everything. Yeah, because you had the notch into the firewall even for 22s probably, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For even 20s.
Yeah, because your Sonoma was on 20s.
Yeah.
Which is another truck I wanted to get into. So you went from the Eclipse. What came after the Eclipse?
The Isuzu.
The truck.
Mm-hmm.
That was your first mini truck.
That was my first.
Did you build a chassis under it?
I did.
That's right. Okay.
Front to back.
That's right. Okay. So I never saw that truck in person, I don't think, because that was from what years did you have that truck? What year did you start building that truck?
04, 05.
Okay.
Because I remember going to Show Fest and I was still working on it.
What opened your eyes to? So was it like Dave's truck, and like is that
it was
what?
Putt's truck.
Okay. The hard body.
That opened my eyes to body drops, like air ride, stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where you got the itch to build a mini truck for the most part.
So, I mean, with body drops, there's 2 different ways you do it. There's traditional, which is you raise the floor. And the body itself falls down
over the frame. Yeah.
And then there's...
And you lose your
your headroom.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm 5'4", so why would I care? No.
Exactly.
I did what they call a stock floor, which is you build your own chassis.
Yep.
You put the factory body back on it, and the interior doesn't change whatsoever except for transmission tunnel.
Right.
So I did a full frame. I have actually no idea why, because it was a lot of work.
It's so crazy. See, I think of that because, I some of my cars have gone pretty deep as far as like the amount of work involved, but I didn't do them by myself. Like the mostly involved ones, my dad and I built together, and a lot of the welds are mine, but there were a lot of design, like R&D development, like walls that went up that I didn't know how to navigate around. And my dad would be like, since he had 40 years experience on me, he would be like, well, if we design it like this, we could do this, and then you'll be able to get your height. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I think back, because I've heard you tell this story before, when I think back to you building a full front to back chassis for this Isuzu, I'm like, wow. Like, because I remember asking you the first time, I'm like, well, how'd you know what to do? And you're like, I didn't.
No.
You're like, I just did it.
No. And you have those friends that, like,
give you
Chris
pointers.
Tacato, he's in the scene so heavy that you could almost bring up a topic and he'd be like, well, I know a guy from wherever and he did such and such and that's how we overcame that obstacle. And it's like, oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
how cool is that though? That's my favorite thing about like this whole thing. Is like, you know, especially with like a truck. When I first got the 52, the cab over, I was picking Steve's brain, Steve Lafayette, his brain about it. And I'm like, hey, so, you know, if I'm going to be towing, should I do a 4-link or should I do like a 6-link? Should I do like something like real crazy? Should I do a Watts linkage or Panhard bar? You know, what do you think? And so, and he'd same thing like what you said Decatur would do. Steve would be like, well, I knew a guy with a dually that hauled like a 5th wheel that did this setup. But then I knew a guy that did a tongue mount, like 2-car wedge trailer that like did this setup or whatever. So I love that you don't necessarily have to go to the internet, just word of mouth. People just, you know,
right.
So cool. So you dove in on your Isuzu.
And speaking of Steve, so he had a few S10s and he was obsessed with body drops.
Okay. So
he could body drop an S10
in a weekend. We need to talk about this. Everyone who's listening, that's still listening, that's into mini trucks and into anything low. This scene was very small here in New Hampshire. And this is before I got involved. This was all happening before I even knew. I was off doing wheelies and no-footers on bicycles. And you guys are doing like amazing. Like it's all relative. I would do what I did again. But I think about it a lot. I'm like, man, I wish when I was in high school, I mean, I was excited about the BMX thing taking off and becoming whatever it became, but I really wish I'd met you guys when I was in high school and gotten into it then, because when I hear these stories, to me, they're the glory days that I like missed out on, because this area is a small area. We're in central New Hampshire, right? You know, we're an hour and a half north of Boston, and one could argue that Boston's like a northern city that's kind of removed from a lot of mini trucking and stuff scenes. So there weren't a lot of guys around here doing this. And in my opinion, having traveled and met a lot of people that do this stuff, it's a pretty legendary scene, you know, that I include you in. It's like you, Ryan Arsenault, Steve. Yep. How do you pronounce Steve's last name properly?
I say Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Yeah.
I say Lafayette, but I don't think that's right either. It's French.
Right.
I think.
You're just putting the accent.
So Steve, So Steve was another guy, and I wanted to make sure we talked about Steve too, because leading up to his full-size Dodge, that was body dropping 28s.
Yeah, you know, just something quick, something simple.
Steve, so I want to get back to you.
And he drove it like that to shows.
I watched
him
drive.
Away.
Yeah. Camp and Drag in Indiana. Oh, yeah. 28s with like 20 series tires. Oh. and one of those wheels showed up in Indiana the shape of a stop sign.
Yeah, that was to be expected.
Of course it is.
I mean, it's the Northeast for one.
You can't hit one bridge between here and Massachusetts and not have that wheel like bend.
I mean, I cringe because it could be an oil pan, but then the cost of a 28, you're not fixing that. You got to buy another one.
Yeah. So Steve was another one of those guys, like you said, started with S10s and was like a magician.
Oh yeah.
Like a fabrication magician.
Down to a science.
I've heard these stories. Like, and I can't remember if you were part of it or not. He was telling me about, whose truck was it? Might have been one of Ryan's S10s. Maybe that one? He talked about an S10 that they pulled in that they were going to back half. It was like lowered, had a notch, had like block. It was like blocked. It was like static or something, or maybe it was bagged, but they hadn't back halved it. It wasn't like 4-linked and like, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, so we rolled it in the shop. This might have been BJ Lanigan telling me this.
Oh, probably.
But they rolled it in like the garage and they just like pulled the bed off, pulled a couple like cross measurements to the back of the frame and just cut the frame off.
That's it.
And I'm like, how, like, see, I look at quote unquote building cars the way I looked at like bike tricks. Like I was never a hucker. I would ease my way into tricks so that by the time I finally pulled it, I didn't fall hardly at all.
Sure.
But it took me way longer to learn something than someone who just like sent it. But I didn't get hurt as bad as someone who just would send it.
Yeah. Oh, so personal injury is a little different than, now I can't drive this car.
Well, yeah, exactly. But listening to them talk about cutting the back half of this frame off and then just like welding it back on again.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, and he's like, yeah, so we did it on like a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's amazing. So Sunday they were driving it with a full back half.
You got into, so Harbor Freight would make that pipe bender.
Yep.
So we'd get, 125 dome pipe and bend it and, that's a bag mount now. And sure enough, after you were done, Steve had a truck that it just looks...
It was nuts, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I saw photos of that. It was an S10, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the back half on that S10 was artwork.
Yeah, because he essentially welded in off of all of the bends mounts that would bolt the air tank to the frame.
Yeah.
Like part of an integral part of it, like structure wise.
Yeah.
So when the tank was bolted in, it acted as reinforcement. So
Cool.
All put together, it was art.
It really was art.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a photo of the back half of that truck, and I'm like, the structure, it wasn't just fancy for looking fancy. It was all like actual like structure of the frame.
And
so
then
cool.
Steve's a body guy, so it had to be painted. And I mean, after all of that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's his day job is body work. So when he modified the fender, so for those listening who haven't seen it, when this goes live, I'm going to share a bunch of the photos of this stuff on my Instagram story so you guys can see some of the stuff we're talking about. But so he had a facelifted third gen Dodge. And for those of you who don't know, they're kind of like the second gen Dodge where the hood narrowed in and the fenders were shallower. The fenders sat out.
Yeah.
And to lay body on 28-inch wheels, those needed to be altered because it was sitting on the fenders. And so he customized the top of the fenders, but they didn't look customized. He like changed the body line of the fenders to like allow the truck to sit body on the 28s. But at first glance, even at a long glance, you didn't get the idea that he had even messed with the fenders at all. The bodywork that
was, again, kind of one of them things. Steve is very meticulous in that craft of bodywork, which is a whole other form of patience because I could never do it. Yeah. But he had an eye, he had a feel, kind of like fabricators where they can look at a frame or a chop top and boom, I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's all just going to fall in line. Steve came up to an obstacle. How am I going to stuff these 28s into this fender?
That's so nuts.
And pulled the fender off, looked at it. All right, I'm going to do this, this, this. And sure enough, when you put it back on, cleared. I mean, you couldn't turn to turn with it, but you could turn a little bit. You had to clear the fenders completely to turn all the way. But
right.
I mean, he fabricated those fenders to a point where, you would have thought Dodge made it.
Yep.
The way he fabricated it, seam sealed it, painted it, worked the body, it just looked factory, if not better.
And when he first bagged that truck, it was on like 26s, and then
which was still amazing.
And yeah. But when he decided to body drop it, that was like a weekend thing. I watched him post that on Facebook. He was like,
it didn't take him long to bag it either.
He doesn't have it. No. And when he first bagged it, he was working out of that little unit over in Bristol.
Yeah.
But when he body dropped it, it was at his house in Moultonboro. And he posted a photo on Facebook, or maybe he texted it to me, one way or the other. He had like the bed off, and then like the nose of the truck was off. And he's like, well, I'm going to get that extra inch or whatever. And I was like, wait, are you body dropping? He's like, yeah. And he cut channels in the cab and set the cab down.
It was unbelievable.
And then it was literally by that following Monday, he was driving it to work, body dropped.
Well, it's one of those things that he could do an S10 so quickly that I think he looked at that Dodge and was just like...
That's what he said, too. He goes, yeah, this is my first full-size truck, but it's just like a big S10.
Yeah, right? Kind of.
I was like,
the front suspension on that truck, the way he did it, and, you literally had to take the front suspension out.
Cut
no
everything
control
off.
arms, nothing.
It was bare frame rails up front. And he ended up using the Michigan Metal Works.
Yep.
At least the upper control arms. I don't know if he used the bottom ones, too. But those are plasma cut out of 1/2-inch steel. They're flat stock.
Oh yeah,
flat stock control arms, and even on a full size truck, he had no issues.
Heim joint for ball joints.
And he had an extension for his tie rod end. He had like a long leg drop, tie rod drop, so the tie rod wasn't getting all bound up. It was a real good truck. I remember shooting that truck. That's the first time I've ever said anything like that. I did take a photo set. This is back when I was first getting into photography, and I'm not a photographer at all. But I remember taking a full photo set and video, like taking a video of that truck. I'm looking at your body dropped third gen Dodge diecast model. As we're talking about his truck, I'm looking at that thing, and I'm like, oh, it looks a lot like Steve's. But so Ryan was down in Concord, so he's a little bit farther away. But the three of you guys, and like Dave as well, but like the three of you guys were doing truck after truck after truck for the most part. When you're with your Isuzu, I mean, you like you said, you custom built the chassis under that thing, having not done anything like that before.
Right, but we had the internet at that point.
Yeah, and friends.
And then Decato, which was,
the internet.
Pretty much, yeah, your internet for that aspect.
Yeah.
And, he'd be, I've seen guys doing this, and I'm like, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
What's it going to hurt?
Now, this was before, because you did a lot of work on his Frontier, right? You did the chassis work on that,
Oh, that
too.
truck was amazing. Yeah, he did.
Because that was before
20s on that.
Yep.
Body dropped, bag.
4-door Frontier, right?
No, it was extended cab.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And it was a manual. So, I mean,
Cool.
a lot of just things that you had to overcome.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't think, when he started that truck, I don't remember that truck being in the mini truck scene that heavy. It was your S10s, it was your hard bodies.
Yeah.
And then a Frontier. And then we're like, wow, no, it's going to look amazing. So it had those fender flares that looked like they were, put on aftermarket with the screws and stuff. So just the stance of that truck when it laid out, it just looked so aggressive to tuck all that wheel. So yeah, that truck was amazing.
When did you guys build that truck?
7.
That's so cool. Yeah, 13 years ago now.
Yeah.
I've just seen photos of it.
Yeah, 07.
I never got a chance to see that truck in person.
I don't think it. So Decato is one of those people that he gets it, builds it, done. I'm bored.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, let's get another one.
Yeah,
so
I know it.
And then Steve was kind of like that too. So
yeah.
they were all like accomplishments, and then once you got to that peak, it was all right. Now what?
Yeah, I'm cut from the same cloth for sure. I don't enjoy. I've said this on the podcast before. I don't enjoy the journey as much as I'm hoping to in the future. I want that end goal more than I want the journey. Like I want it done and visually done and laid out in my front yard.
But every time you do a build, you must learn something new.
I do. And in the hindsight, looking back on it is when I cherish that more.
Yeah.
But I feel like every project I have, and I'm not rushed by any other variables other than my own deadline I give myself.
Well, we have seasons up here. So you get that winter, and then if you see somebody out in spring like this time now, and their stuff's done and yours isn't, I gotta get going.
I feel like every project has been, with the exception of my cab over, which is sat under a tarp unfinished for 5 years now, but every other project has been like a winter blitz.
Yeah.
The 700, the Corvair, the Century.
Oh, because you take on. Blitz. It's not like, I'm just gonna bag it and we're gonna channel the roof. We're gonna put our own glass in it. You take it to a whole other level. We're just looking to go low and.
Yeah, but I look at you guys as the. I want to, and it's kind of like Mike bought that S10 because he wanted to get into the mini truck scene. Now, obviously, that truck has been a mini truck in the scene, but he's like putting his own flair on it.
Sure.
The cab over is mine. Like, I've always loved mini trucks for the sake of how low they are, but there's so many of them to where, and as you know, with my taste in cars, I'm like, I got to have something that like I've never seen before. There's plenty of guys that have bagged the cab overs too, but since I was a kid, I've always wanted that generation cab over, like a 47 to 53 cab over. And so now that I have it, I don't really care that that there's been a handful of other ones done.
Sure.
But so my first truck, it's almost like Steve finally doing a full-size truck from the S10s. I've never done a truck, and now I'm going right to the big rig, basically.
Right. He didn't go to your traditional Chevy, or he went for a Dodge, because I don't think you saw a lot of Dodges for the whole point of that front suspension. I mean, it's not something where you took the coil out and you mounted a bag mount and then use the factory upper and lower control arm.
Yeah, you didn't buy like a Porterbuilt front clip like you can for a square body Chevy or whatever.
Right, or a C10 and
that's what I mean. Yeah,
there's still a lot of work there too.
For sure. But there's applications. There's like some
you can buy that part.
Prefab parts for that. Yeah, because I remember Steve was saying he was in communication with the guy from Michigan Metal Works a lot about his control arms and like what kind of range of motion he was going to need and where they were going to mount and yeah, because he cut everything off the frame rails. The frame rails went straight up to the front and there was nothing there, and he like made everything. Upper and lower control arms, and everything had to be just right.
Cool.
Caster had to be right. Everything had to be.
And he did his own alignments.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what's so crazy. That's the only reason why we kept the straight axle in the front of my cab over, and rather than going to IFS, it'd be taking a massive step backwards because my dad and I have so much work. We built a 7-inch drop axle in the front. So basically, that Dodge 2-wheel drive, second gen Dodge chassis is a straight axle with a 4-link up front with a panhard bar. It's a 4-link up front. It's a parallel 4-link that comes forward. The panhard bar is in front with the steering, and it's a straight axle. And the frame, obviously, as you lower it down, because it's a coil sprung front, and we built bag brackets and all that, the frame rail sits right on the axle. So what we did was, without cutting the axle up, we built a 7-inch drop down, like, so from the spindles in. We didn't mess with the axle. We took the axle. I cut all the spring perches and sway bar mounts. I cut everything off, even the 4-link mounts, like everything off. It's just like a bar with the upper and lower ball joint spindles that are like a part of it. So we left that as one piece, so we didn't mess with any of the ball joint angles or anything. We left all that.
Sure.
And we constructed a 7-inch drop. So we went straight down from the spindles and across with like a, it's been a long time since I've seen it, like a 2x5 or 6 metal thick wall tubing and gusseted it and all that. But we built, and then we cut the stock axle out. Once it was all welded in, we cut the stock axle out, so we never lost our dimensions between ball joints or anything like that. So now that frame could go 7 inches lower and ultimately set the cab, which we set on that chassis, on the ground. So then we custom built mounts for the 4-link. We custom built an adjustable panhard bar up front, and now we had to build a 7-inch drop steering assembly as well, because that was in the way.
Coming through the actual floor, right? That came down.
Well, we had to build that too, because now it's a cab over. But I mean, as far as like the steering, from the steering box, the tie rod went straight across, so we had to build a 7-inch drop in that too to basically sit level with the axle.
Yep.
So it was a ton of work, but I don't have. It doesn't camber when it airs down, and I think because I'm going to run milled 22-inch like Alcoas, with adapters and stuff, my track width is wider than like the cab fenders are. So now, but with an IFS front end with that camber adjustment, it would suck the top of the wheel under. So part of me, now that I feel, in the last 5 years, I've learned a lot, and I've added to my fabrication arsenal, I guess you could say. I feel a little bit more advantageous or a little bit more daring to like cut that all up and do. We didn't do an IFS front end because we were afraid.
But you could always narrow the axle.
But everything, it's weird. Yeah, the axle, if you come in too much more, it'll like hit your. I think the steering box is right there, and and where the parallel 4-links mount on the frame would have to come in. So
what's the distance between, say, the frame rail and the fender?
I'll have to look. It's been a long time. It's been hiding under that tarp. More than likely, we'll try to use with what we got with the drop axle in the front now and get the rear done and continue. But basically, it's kind of the same way like you were talking about with Steve diving into that Dodge before a lot of people were doing body drop Dodges or bagged, frame laying Dodges. The same thing with this. Nobody's like done what we're doing because some could argue it's a harder road. Because some people would be like, why not just buy control arms and just weld them on and like do an IFS front end, which would make sense. But the way we did it, it's like I was able to like traverse that mountain with my dad and think up new ideas. And so yeah, at the end of the day, my cab over, although there have been 47 to 53 GM cab overs put on Dodge chassis, we kind of did our own like avenue, I guess. But
that's, I think, why some things become popular. They're easier, they're quicker.
Yeah.
You can show it faster. Hey, look what I did.
Which is kind of like, and like when you did your Isuzu, did you get into the Sonoma that I knew you with after the Isuzu? What came between those?
Between the Isuzu and the Sonoma?
You had the Isuzu for quite a while, didn't you?
05, yeah.
Because you had the Sonoma in 11 when I first started hanging out with you.
Yeah, so I had the... So at some point you realize not to mess with your daily driver. So the Eclipse was my daily driver.
I've learned that too. Now wait, so the Eclipse, you had a PlayStation controller.
Oh yeah,
was that for air or for the hydraulics?
That was for the hydraulics.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So obviously in my field it's electronics.
Yep.
So I took the airbag out. There was a screen there. I put the PlayStation in the glove box. Made my own door for the glove box, so all you saw was a CD slot. So my goal was to have something that if I ever got pulled over, you couldn't just look in and see a switch box and be like, oh, he's got adjustable.
Yeah.
So the PlayStation controller was that for me. If you looked in, you saw the TV, you saw a PlayStation, but that was for something else.
So good.
It's one of those things.
So good.
Yeah, up here in the Northeast, you kind of have to remember that it's illegal and kind of make some.
Well, it definitely was back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of a friend of ours, AJ.
No, I don't
He
know.
had a bagged dually.
Is it the one that got black flagged or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for something like that to happen, it opened your eyes to, wow, this could go south quick.
They could actually pull the VIN.
Right.
Pull the VIN plate off my, take
Right.
the plates, and this truck is now no longer registerable.
Yeah, like come to your house. Not, oh, I'm driving down the street and I got pulled over at that point. Because usually it was, all right, if I take this road, I don't pass a lot of cops, I'm good to go. But to know that they could come to your house, do that, you started doing things a little differently.
Yeah.
Because he had a lot of work, a lot of time. That bagged body drop dually, it was Cadillac tails. It was one of those things where you're like, that's amazing.
Well, here's the
There's nothing
giveaway
like
too.
it.
Did it have a floor in it or no? Was
Yeah.
it exposed? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of the guys that were driving with trucks around here back in the day, or I say around here,
Yeah.
just if they didn't have a bed and an officer looked in there, it's like, oh,
Obvious, yeah.
yeah. So I guess with a bed floor, it kind of hides some of that stuff. But a big dually laying body,
Yeah. No, it stood out. It was right on Route 4.
yeah.
So it was a pretty high traveled road for police officers. Very close to Concord.
Yep.
And
Which is where the state trooper, like that's our capital in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So that's where all the state troopers are.
so
And those are the guys, and DOT officers are the ones that were like really getting that stuff. So your Sonoma, that's another
that's the
truck.
first one I did air.
Oh, so the Isuzu was on juice.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay.
So it was everything out of the Eclipse. So the Eclipse I actually traded in at a dealership. So
when you put it back to stock?
yeah, so as long as you didn't look underneath it, obviously the
amazing.
body itself was banged up.
Yeah.
So I bought all new 4-corner strut assemblies.
Yep.
Took the hydraulics out, put the springs back in, and there you go.
Did you trade it in for the Isuzu?
No. So
okay.
like I said, there's a point where you start to realize that if you mess with your daily driver and it breaks.
Yeah.
So one of the stories from Carlisle was I was using my hydraulics and the fitting, because hydraulics, you're looking at 30,000 PSI if you go pretty far with it.
Yeah.
So one of the fittings just snapped, just broke right off the top of the cylinder. So hydraulic fluid everywhere. I had to drive almost 10 hours with 3 hydraulic cylinders and 1 factory strut coilover the whole time.
Did you have to go find that somewhere?
Yeah. So I don't know, your AutoZone or whatever it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Parts store had it.
So at that point you realize that, all right, if you have a daily driver, you can
go places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the Isuzu was kind of one of those things where that was a toy. I had a daily driver at that point. So as far as toys in between, I didn't have any. It went from the Isuzu to the Sonoma.
Yeah. So I guess I forgot. I didn't realize that the Isuzu was on hydraulics. But when you went to the Sonoma, you did a stock floor body drop in that too, because you built the chassis, you built the frame under that truck too.
Yeah. Buddy of mine, John, actually the guy that got me into hydraulics.
Yep.
We were kind of just in that itch, so he didn't have his town car anymore, and I think you're always in it, regardless of what life happens. If there's a chance to get back into it for cheap money, so we found this truck, drove to it. He bought the truck. He was starting it as his own project. And
single cab, short box.
Yep.
Second gen S10
98
Sonoma. Yep.
Or 99.
Yep.
But yeah, we started it together, and I think he kind of had other things going on. I was like, I'll buy it from you. We did the work together.
Yep.
So at that point, we started getting into, well, why don't we body drop it? So then I made a frame for it. Obviously, I had the practice on the Isuzu.
Yep.
And the issue with trucks up here is if they're from here,
they're rotted out.
Yeah, they're rotted out. So we had our challenges in the front end. We got through them, but it was still pretty rusty. But the bed inside was destroyed. So in some pictures, you have the black bed on it.
Yep.
And then I found
that like silver bed or whatever. Yeah, tan bed. Yeah.
So,
and that was basically, it's too bad you never, because you drove it a few times. I remember meeting up with you, Lisa, maybe Dave Brent. This was in 2014, maybe, when you just got it running. You guys were at the new location at the shop.
Yep.
And we met up at like Patrick's for dinner. And,
oh wow, yeah.
And I left. You were in the Sonoma. I couldn't believe I saw it with my own two eyes. You pull into the parking lot in that Sonoma. I was like, oh man, finally.
Well, that was my first, because the thing with air is everybody's always challenged, or at least I feel like you're challenged with how much air you have and when you can use it.
Right.
You know, whether you have a 3-gallon, 10-gallon, whatever it may be, the compressor is always your weakest link.
Right.
How fast can the compressor go? You could buy these Oasis compressors that were big CFM, but they were thousands of dollars.
You were running an engine-driven, like an AC compressor converter.
That was
right?
my first. John and I kind of tried to get together on that one and figure out, well, a lot of guys are doing AC compressors instead of running, R12 through it or whatever it may be. You could run air through it and run an oiler to, obviously, because there's no fluid,
right,
to make it so it didn't seize. So we had issues with it, and I think that's kind of what prevented me from driving it, because I didn't want to break it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I remember you were hung up on that. It looked cool though, because when you body dropped it,
oh yeah,
you had to cut a hole in the hood.
Yeah.
So that thing, because
right.
everyone thought it was a blower.
Oh yeah,
but it wasn't. It was
supercharged.
It was the AC compressor that was now a compressor for the air suspension spinning. And it looked like a blower sticking up out of the hood.
Yeah.
And so you showed up at Patrick's. We ate dinner, and then obviously I live on the other side of the hill there, so I left one way, and that whole long straight stretch along the airport runway right there. Mm-hmm. And I had heard when you got home that you're on your way home, the entire length of that long straight stretch, the truck was touching the ground.
Oh yeah, that's another aspect.
I'd heard. I don't know if it was. Oh, Steve was there. Someone took video of it. I can't remember.
Oh really?
Maybe someone was. It might have been Steve that told me. Steve's like, yeah. So Moe dragged the entire length of the airport, like straight stretch in the Sonoma on the way home.
Feeling.
And I was like, and I missed it because you didn't, as you didn't say a single thing about it. Otherwise, I would have like followed. Yeah,
because I'm never one to be like, oh, look at me. It was
I know.
I just loved dragging.
It just happened.
Thus, my emails drag it hard. I mean, that was made in Yahoo.
Oh, Ryan wanted to know. And we're not going to get to the Instagram questions because we're kind of covering all the answers now. Ryan wanted to know what the license plate was on your Eclipse.
Oh, Jesus. Actually, I have it in the shop. Mo Money. So everybody would think it said Mom U New York. So it was MOMUNY. They're like, so Mommy bought your car? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It says Mom on your license plate.
Mom.
I mean, let's sound this out a little bit.
Oh.
But yeah, Mo Money.
Mo Money.
It stood for needed Mo Money.
Yeah.
Because I was always broke, just like anybody else who has car issues.
Exactly. Yeah, because I remember Ryan actually messaged me. Like he didn't add one of the questions. He actually just like private messaged me, and he was just like, talk about the Eclipse, talk about Bull and Pans in Old Orchard Beach, and ask him what the plate was. And I have seen that plate. I forgot that was the plate that was on there. Yeah. Because Steve had like it fell. On the S10s.
And I think so. Cops were getting pretty smart. So if you had a vanity plate, that was
it's over. Yeah,
because that's all the cop had to remember. Not the truck, not anything you were doing at the moment. Just the fact that he knew there was something wrong with that truck, whether it was hydros,
even if you were driving it around at stock height.
Oh, it fell. Yep, I know he's doing something with it.
It fell with the angled French plate on the tailgate. Yeah.
Again, Steve couldn't be
subtle.
Yeah, no. He was all or nothing.
That's crazy. I mean, I've got the unsafe plate on the Corvair.
Dave Brent on air.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you get around?
Yeah,
what do you mean on air?
On the plate.
So that's his email. On air.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love to. I mean, the Eclipse, I dragged the piss out of that car.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
The Isuzu. So I built that frame, but I over body dropped it, so the body was lower than the frame.
Right.
So when you drag that, you were dragging the rockers.
Were you running blocks on that?
No. So what I did is, so you have the pinch weld. Mm-hmm. Obviously, once you cut that pinch weld, the rocker and the inner body
will separate. But you like reinforced that, didn't you?
Yeah. So I did 1 inch flat stock all the way down, pounded your pinch weld up, flat stock all the way down. So when you dragged it, it was
skating
smooth.
on iron.
But that didn't last very long.
No, of course it didn't.
So I don't know what it was. It's just like an obsession with dragging.
I know. I know.
I gotta get back there.
So you gotta build something else. So the Fox, my wagon that was static, touched the ground all the time. So that was the drag car.
Yeah.
So that just
when you
dragged.
told me about that,
So that just dragged. That was like my drag car that just dragged all the time, and it was my daily driver. So, and I drove it to H2O in 2010, which was 12 hours one way. So here's what happened, and I may have told this story on the podcast once before, maybe not. Same with your obsession of dragging. I had an obsession in 2009 and 2010 of just being as low as possible static. And there are other people doing that. It's more prevalent now, like in the Japanese scene and stuff. There's like a lot of like real low static cars, and there were back then too, but not a lot around here.
Right.
So that car, the way that's it's a unibody car, but the way it's built is it's basically like frame rails, then the floor, but it's basically like frame rails, subframe, like or like engine cradle, and then the oil pan. So I even raised the pan even a little bit more. So now it's like way out of the way. So I could literally just drive that car and just send it. It was just the frame rails. Frame rails are the lowest part of the whole car, and that's.
I'm assuming at some point the floor pan would kind of peel back like a sardine can.
My who was with me? My friend Tony Blair from Utica, New York, was with me. Was it Tony? Might have been my friend Kevin Furness. He's my tattoo artist. He lives out in Vegas now, but one of them was with me. I was in Syracuse or Utica. I went out there to visit those guys, and we were in a mall parking lot in the wagon. Now this is early 2011. So I'd had this car had been touching the ground for over a year, daily driven.
Nicely, of course.
Yeah. So we were leaving a mall parking lot, and there were some speed bumps. And I obviously, as you do, kind of took it at an angle, nice and slow. Yeah. The car touched the ground all the time anyway, for the most part. Yeah. I mean, it's self-clearanced. So now at this point, it's like not when you're just driving on flat ground. But if you're changing lanes on the highway, that little bit of crown for water drainage, like you dragged on the white line or yellow line, like the car would drag on just the width of the paint that they put. Just let alone for road turtles.
10 hours,
Thank God
hours.
We don't put road turtles on our like lines like they do
yeah,
in Florida.
that was a thing with mini truckers too.
So
deflectors.
Yes, bad. So we're going over. So obviously on a speed bump, there's like no way around it. There's like cars everywhere. I had to go over the speed bump, and I took one, took two, and like the third one as we're exiting this mall. As we took it, my passenger side floor separated from the rocker, and it ripped the carpet, and you could just see out the car. And it was Kevin or Tony, and they went, "Oh, hey, dude, I can see the ground from here." And I was like, "What?" Because his seat moved.
Oh my God!
Like, because it separated from the rocker, and like the seat bracket was on that part of the floor, and I had like a 6.5 hour drive home, and so we pulled over, and I got out and I looked at it, and I was like, "Well, it'll be fine for the drive home," and I had to end up welding. Had to pull all the carpet out and like jack the floor back up to where it was supposed to be and stitch weld it back to. Yeah. But so anyway, H2O, when I first did the coilover, because that car didn't have coilover options for it. That's the way the suspension was set up. So I did a Mark II like Golf suspension conversion in it. And the way it happened, it like sectioned everything and the car just like went to the floor. So we left for H2O, which, as we already talked about, was like a 12-hour drive. And the car was basically touching the ground when I left. But by the time we got down to H2O, Ocean City, Maryland, it had self-clearance. I'd hit absolutely everything in the road on the way down.
Is that on purpose? Or?
Well, I was trying to get around, so I didn't want to break a pan or something, you know? I was on 13s. It was on 13s. 175 50s on 13 by like 7 Chevy Vega wheels. And I was tucking 13s. Like, that's how low this thing was. So I get down there, we get down to the strip, and now the car's not dragging as much as it used to because everything's been dragged out from under it. And all the guys on air are dragging it by like the convention center and 45th Street and 56th Street, all the places where people congregated were airing their cars out and dragging. And I was like, my car can usually do this. So we go into the condo parking lot and I put it on jacks and I crank my coils down even more and now touch the ground again. So now cruising up and down the street, I found the spots where there was like a little bit of a crown and I'd just ride that, put a framer on it and just shower sparks. But I was so stubborn back then that I used to always say this, and it was me putting my foot in my mouth, that coilovers only go one way. They only go one way. You can't raise it. If you go down, you got to drive it there. And it was half and half of me just being a stubborn, stupid kid and not having enough money to just go air. So I was like, if I'm going to live this static life, I might as well just like act like it's all or nothing. So I lowered it even more, so the car touched
Yeah.
all the time now. It had self-clearance on the way down, lowered it more. Now it dragged on the strip all the time. Drove home at that height, didn't raise it again. Pouring rain the whole way home, couldn't see a single thing. Every single bridge or any imperfection in the road just about put me through the windshield of that car. And it's the most miserable I've ever been.
I was going to say that can't be.
No, it's not good. It's not fun. It's not, no.
But there was an off factor to everybody else, I'm sure.
Just me. Every time I'd hit, I'd be like,
nobody else cared.
I just like, yeah, life was just the worst. And then when I got home, I'd see the thing in the yard and I'm like, it's now it's a story. Now I'm like, I drove to and from H2O in a car with coilovers that just touched the ground all the time 10 years ago.
Knowing you could have lifted it.
I could have, but I would have been cheating. And that's not acceptable.
On your rule?
In my world, I would have been cheating. But so anyway, I share that same like dragging, like you said, it's like you get that itch, and I'm sure as we're talking about it, you're thinking about getting that itch even more.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna reach out to Dave Brent, see if we can resurrect that S10.
Oh, you guys should. That'd be awesome. And when if you guys tinker on that, you got to let me know, because I'll drive out to Dave's and like kind of like document it a little bit, like, because I know you guys both have Instagram, but you're not as like active on it as like I am. So
I'm horrible at it.
I would love to like post photos of you guys like working on a mini truck again. You know what I mean? Like that'd be pretty cool. Because I missed it the first time. I wasn't around. I was out and about doing other things, and so it'd be really cool to like be a part of like a mini truck build with you guys. And even like I know we're all busy, we all lead different lives now, but like even with my cab over, I even told Steve, I was like, when that thing goes back in the shop, my dad and I are working on it. I encourage all you guys to like, if anyone's got like a Friday, Thursday night where they got some time, it's like, I know you're a dad now, but it's like, you guys are more than welcome to
I'll
come
bring
over.
my daughter. She'd love it.
Yeah. It'd be awesome to have like, you guys have some welds of your own on, or some wiring as you do. Let's talk about that though. Let's get into that, because where are we at? I think I'm hitting the refrigerator with this boom arm. We're working with the space we got. We're 2 hours in, man.
That's pretty good.
Let's talk about MES then. Let's give your shop some promotion. So you, aside from all the mini trucking and all that stuff, you've been in the automotive electronic world for more than 20 years now. What, 22 years? 98?
98, yeah. Started at Kelly's.
22 years now. And working for a few shops in this area. Yeah, 2 shops. Yeah, over the course of all those years.
Yeah.
You've
many owners.
Yeah, many owners, 2 shops, many owners. And now we're in the waiting room of your own shop, MES, which is Mobile Electronic Solutions. So you are, what, 2 years into this now?
It'll be 3 this September.
That's right. Okay.
So a little over 2.5.
And so you're located here in Belmont. Is this Belmont technically?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Belmont, New Hampshire. Yeah. And technically a one-man operation, but you get some help now.
Yes.
You've got you get someone helping you now, which is great. And so how, like 22 years later, like how do you feel? Like you still love what you do?
I do, yeah. No, it's, everybody's like, I want to own my own business someday. It's one of those things where I wish I could find somebody that could do me times 2. I mean, if I had 2 of me, it would be great. And I'm not trying to be cocky, but I have a certain way of doing things, and it's worked for me for 20 some odd years. So, I mean, if you're going to try and figure out if it works, then look at your past. And
well, knowing you for the last 10 years, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because you've helped me out on a lot of projects. And so I totally know where you're getting at with that. It's difficult to get somebody to get on the same wavelength as you, both being proactive, how you're going to tackle a project and how you're going to execute it, but also skill level wise too.
Yeah. So the kid that works here now is very smart and very intuitive. He just lacks the years.
Yep.
So,
and that's to no fault of anyone's,
Yeah.
And so
he's young and he's motivated, and it's great. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anybody better at this point.
Yeah.
And I also get to kind of put in my way of doing things without having to break old habits.
Exactly. Yeah, we've talked about that.
It's been great so far, and we're going into a season. Obviously, with the COVID, it's a little different, but
it seems like you're adjusting though. I mean, as we speak, there's like a 4-door Jeep sitting out there that you're doing a bunch of like just add-on stuff, like not just because you do a lot of remote starts going into winter, and there's obviously you're doing a lot of boats this time of year. Like audio stuff and boats, but stuff like that Jeep with what's currently going on is like that's really cool because that's all like modification stuff, the lights and like all the other stuff that you're doing with that thing. So that's really cool that you get your almost like your guaranteed seasonal work, but then you get some like cool projects too that are kind of one-off.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough industry as far as what you need to know, because to stay relevant, you kind of need to know a little about everything.
Yeah.
So, we have our seasons where winter, everything that makes you warm is popular. And in the summer, anything that you can get out in the water or your motorcycle, that's popular. But there's, like you said, there's that in between. So that Jeep, with any Wrangler, there's so many ways you can make it your own. So he's got all these lights that he wants, and we're able to accommodate how he wants them on, and just different aspects like that. So it's tough because, you have the new kid in the Bay, and, he's coming across some of this stuff he's never seen before. And it's just cool to see him. You can do that? And I'm like, no, we'll just do this, this, and this. And, next time somebody comes in, and maybe I forget, and he goes, hey, remember that other one that we did? So it's kind of nice to see somebody be attentive. And
Yep.
I really hope, this whole COVID thing gets by us, and, we kind of get back to a new normal. Obviously it's not going to go back to normal, but
or right away at least.
Yeah. You want to get to a point where people can relax a little bit. Everybody's kind of uptight, the unknown of when.
Yeah, it's the uncertainty. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
And we're an industry of want. We're not an industry of need. You know, as much as, we were deemed an essential business because we are automotive repair. So a lot of the stuff that we tried to do throughout this, your emergency lights, anything safety wise. So backup cameras.
You do a lot of that for first responder vehicles too, though. I see.
Well, I do a heavy discount for municipalities.
Yep.
Fire department, EMS, police.
Yep.
Just because I've always worded it as, say one day I'm in an accident or my house is on fire and they're coming to my house. I want them to be equipped so they can either get there fast or respond in a way that, since I did this for their vehicle, or anybody could have done it. But
Right.
I don't want them to be pushed away because, it's too expensive to do.
Yeah.
That's just not how it should be. And especially these people that are on the front lines right now. So, I started kind of giving a discount for first responders. My wife and I have talked about how can we give back, and I don't have the time to give, but I have the knowledge. So if, those things that you couldn't get before, remote starts, heated seats, some sort of an audio, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I
want to give back with that. So we're trying to figure out a way to make it work as far as numbers. But
yeah, that's awesome though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great that like a lot of small communities like the ones that we're in are kind of doing that. They're kind of like looking after each other. And I mean, even the cities are, which is cool too. I mean, obviously there's a whole different dynamic there, but so you're 2.5 going into 3 years. You got a great spot here. I mean, you're right here.
Yeah, you can't beat Route 106. I mean, it's definitely a highly traveled road. So whether or not you've heard of us through social media, which is pretty tough because I'm horrible at social media.
I
need to figure out how. I'm assuming it's either routine, so you create that habit, or I don't know, you have to train your brain to, because I'm never that one, even through mini truck builds and all that. I was never doing what I was doing to be, hey, look at what I did.
Yeah.
It was always a passion of mine, and that was it. That's what drove me, not somebody else's opinion that thought it was going to be awesome, and that's why I was doing it.
Right.
So to me, it's tough because, you have your two ends of the spectrum for social media. There's those people that love attention, and that's the only reason they're doing it. And then you have the people kind of like me that have an account, and every now and then, maybe you have a few beers, you get a little crazy, and you might post something. So
yeah,
I kind of have to. Owning a business, unfortunately, social media is a necessary evil for me because it's free.
Oh yeah,
and
it's free advertisement.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where mine, like the way I see it is through BMX. I mean, Instagram wasn't around when I was riding BMX full time, but like MySpace was. Now that's where everybody was.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then Facebook opened up to like everybody in like '09. That's when I started on Facebook, because you had to be like enrolled in a university or something before that. And then I can't remember when Instagram actually started, but I started one in 2011, and that was fairly early. It was like within the first year or two that Instagram was around. And I had a few friends that were in professional bands that were like touring all the time, and they were always sharing photos on their Facebook from their Instagram. And I was like, what is this Instagram? And I thought it was just like a photo filter app.
Sure.
You just like put a photo in there and you could like put a filter on it and then link it to your Facebook. Then once I realized it was a platform of just sharing photos, that's when I was like, oh, okay. Because I've always been into photography, even though I don't consider myself a photographer. But it became this thing of like me staying in touch with my friends from BMX, friends from the music scene, and from like cars. So it was void of this, at least for intentional purposes, it was void of this like, hey, look at me, or self proclamation or whatever.
Sure.
But it, for some reason or another, like just kind of captivated some sort of an audience, and now there's like an organic following there. That's half the reason why we're even sitting here doing this podcast. Because over the last like 4 or 5 years, although I've thought in the back of my head every now and then, like, oh, maybe I'd start a podcast. But time and time again, people on Instagram would message me and be like, you should start a podcast. And so, yeah, here we are. And so now, even though you say that, you know, you don't pay much attention to social media, because of social media, we're here with a podcast. And
well, it's not even that. It's, I think I've paid so much attention to the shop, the output, the quality, that unfortunately that has gone by the wayside. All right, wait, before you pull it out, let's take a picture. Let me post it.
But when you think about it, I guess it just takes a couple minutes. It literally does. Yeah, but I get lazy about that too. I haven't posted a photo from my.
So what are hashtags?
Well, see, you're asking the wrong guy, because I don't use them.
Oh.
So I could explain to you what they are, but I don't use them.
Aren't they?
Like, because so a hashtag is a photo bank.
Sure.
It's a catch of photos, right? So, or cache of photos, however you want to pronounce it. So basically, if you were to type in hashtag Toyota Century, you click on that, and that is now a bank of every photo on Instagram that has been tagged Toyota Century. So if you were to do one of Mobile Electronic Solutions, I highly doubt anyone else has used that hashtag. So if if every photo you posted had that hashtag attached to it, it would go into this bank where if somebody clicked on that hashtag, they would now see all of the photos that have that hashtag.
So with that, don't you have to somehow get creative with the amount of hashtags that have been created to try and get one that seems to link it to you?
Well, in my opinion, and like I said, I'm not like a social media like strategist, or like I don't know what the best thing to do is now. I mean, there's all this information's on YouTube for sure.
Yeah.
But because my personal, the Business Night Laser, and like the Governor's Club, those aren't like, I'm not trying to grow that Instagram audience. That audience is just there.
Sure.
It's just, and I mean, I've had my personal Instagram since 2011, so that's just like been there for almost 10 years now. But yeah, people use hashtags to generate more clicks on their photos, which hopefully then lead to more followers, because some people will just hashtag just a paragraph of hashtags. Just sunshine, sunset, Instagram, I like you. Or
so that's where I get lost, and I'm like, all right, I don't have time for this. So then I give up on it.
Don't worry about that. All you have to worry about is taking a photo and posting it from your MES Instagram page. That's it.
So it's crazy, because for me, being in this industry as an installer, not as a business owner,
right?
They're two different worlds. I have to kind of walk both. But for me, as you know, a dominant installer side, the most important part is how it's installed.
Yeah.
So it's not the equipment. You can buy a $10 radio down the street, I'll put it in. You can buy a $1,000 radio from me or offline, I'll put it in. I don't care what you bring me. My passion is how it's put in.
Yep.
Because to me, you could have an equipment failure, but more than likely, 9 times out of 10, it's how it was installed that fails. So when I first opened, I've just tried to do this and encourage customers. If you want to see your install, I will take pictures. I'll bring you back to the bay. You can watch me put it in. I could care less, because I'm confident in how I'm putting it in. And I have a feeling you're going to be a little more at ease seeing how I did it seeing what it looks like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So pictures have always been there. I have thousands of pictures of installs, but I just don't get around to putting them somewhere, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. So
yeah.
I don't know how to get started.
And taking that time will ultimately pay off, because that's when you're generating business, just being a local business with good store frontage and good or road frontage or whatever. But yeah, through the social media, there's a lot of power in social media. I mean, that's the only place I've generated business with Night Laser and the Governor's Club. I mean, we're obviously at shows and stuff, but like Night Laser is my actual day job, and I don't have a website. It's just an Instagram page. And photo composition and making a photo look like nice goes a long way too, rather than just just a blurry, out of focus shot. So there has to be a little bit of forethought into like the composition of the photo itself. But I'll give you some pointers after this for sure.
Yeah. So it usually comes up when I have a customer at the counter and they're like, I have such and such. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I did one of those.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me grab my phone. And I'm like, I could have just directed him to either our Instagram page.
Yeah, and you could see all your work. Yeah.
Create a YouTube video of
See,
a
that's
certain
the
install.
thing. That's the thing. Like with the amount of experience you have, and more notably, the way you do your installs, which does set you apart from others. How like refined you are and how meticulous you are about everything. Someone like you could have a pretty productive YouTube channel because you've got a lot of experience and a lot to say about why you would do something the way you're doing it.
Sure.
And that I'm learning that too, because I've just recently in the last couple of years started a YouTube channel, and I'm like trying to figure out where that angle is, because people on Instagram will be like, oh, you should start a YouTube channel. And then like, now that I did, I'll get, oh, I'm so happy you started a YouTube channel. I love watching your videos. And I'm thinking, you like watching me like do a fuel pump in the Corvair or whatever. Yeah. But it's like, a lot of these people are just like, I think you've got a lot to bring to the table. A YouTube channel requires a lot of time and all that. But I mean, and who knows, man, like there's always next year, at some point you might get to the point where you've got 2 installers that are like godsends.
That'd be nice.
And they kind of live on your wavelength kind of. And that'll give you an opportunity to like focus more on like the visual of the business and like start a YouTube channel. And now like when you're doing an install, you don't have to do it in 2 hours. You could do it in 4 because you're filming it and you're setting up your camera to do this one thing, and then you're setting up your camera to solder over on your bench, and you're telling people like why you solder the way you solder, or why soldering is better than using a butt connector, or what so. And there's a lot of people that have already started YouTube channels like that, but yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different avenues that you could dive down. But for right now, in my opinion, just post photos on your Instagram. Just start there. Even if it's not like filled with hashtags or stuff that you don't understand. Just take a photo of that Jeep in there or whatever.
True.
Or that Falcon or whatever that car is out here. And just be like, just take a photo of it and be like doing a single din with speakers in this Falcon. And then the next day, I mean, do 2 posts a day. Then the next, just a photo of the Jeep.
Can we start with 1?
Yeah, do 1.
Jeez.
Not one a week, do 1 a day. They'd be like, yeah, Jeep that we did some, whatever, the lights, whatever's, all the stuff.
I mean, I have huge builds that people are like, you did that? I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you
like,
should.
I didn't see it on it. No.
Yeah, you got to get more of that stuff up on Instagram. But if you, man, make sure Dave listens to this. Dave, you better be listening to this. We got to get on, and I've got a lot of projects myself too that I feel like I don't have the time for. But if you guys start diving in on Dave's S10, I'll come out. I'll help document that stuff. I'll even put it on my YouTube channel because that's great content.
Whoa.
Because then I can focus on just filming while you guys are, working on the S10 or whatever. For me, it's like I've got to split my time up between everything. But I think, you're on a good roll because you broke away from the stresses of making someone else money, because that's like when you were at your breaking point 3 years ago.
It's tough because I blamed it all on that other person.
Yeah.
The reason we clashed was his fault. Now, being a business owner,
you're kind of seeing
I look back and I'm like, man, I was an asshole.
Yeah.
And just being stubborn, and I had to have it a certain way. And, he's trying to generate revenue and be efficient, because it's all hand in hand.
It's all about the numbers.
Yeah. So, I only saw he's not letting me do it my way in my amount of time. This job's supposed to take 2. It's taken me 3 because I got distracted or whatever it may be. So now being a business owner, I'm like, wow, man, he had a few good points. Not that hopefully he ever hears this, but it's one of those things that it's tough.
I mean, and even if, I don't think he listens to the podcast, but even if he does, it's like there's that's reconciliation, in my opinion. That's you being like, oh, like,
yeah.
But that being said, that may have been all along. That may have been you being an undercover like business owner yourself, because it's like that's the way you wanted to do it. That's the way you felt like it needed to be done. But because you weren't the business owner, there was conflict there because it wasn't getting done either quick enough or whatever. So now that you are the business owner and you can kind of see everybody's viewpoint of everything years ago, but now you're the one who can call the shots and you can be like, it might take longer, but we're going to do it this way.
Right.
So, I don't think, I mean, I know there were some like, I don't know if you want to call them bridges burned at the beginning, but I mean, it's like, I don't know. You're here now. Yeah. It's kind of like what you wanted to do, because even though I'm sure you'd rather not deal with a lot of the ins and outs of like running the business itself and just, but now it's like, it's your baby. You know what I mean? Like it's your.
That I decided to start when I had a baby.
When you were about to have a baby.
So my business and my daughter are the same age.
Yeah, that's right.
So
crazy. But you took the plunge and you're here.
Yeah. And people ask me, are you glad you did it? And, 9 times out of 10, yes, there are all those days that everybody has that where you're like, why did I do this? Why did I even start? But the initial jump, that leap, like you said, is just the hardest part.
That is the hardest part.
Because it's either sink or swim. And I think that pressure for most people should motivate you. All right, how do I generate more business?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. Like it's necessity now. Yeah. And so it keeps you on your toes. It keeps your mind sharp, even though, because I deal with the same thing. I mean, I'm only a sole proprietor and I don't have as much overhead as you because my shop's at my house and stuff. But like I can never get away from it.
Right.
Like every morning, Saturday or Sunday, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it should always be there, but.
Yeah. Well, and I'm learning to manage it more too. I mean, I'm going into 5 years now. So, I mean, it becomes more manageable, or you just learn how to like live with it and not let it stress you out. And obviously you've got, I mean, because I don't have a family. I'm single with no kids. You've got.
I remember those days.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But no, I mean, it's great, man. And I'm excited. I'm hoping, because I know you would have a field day with the Century with the amount of like electronics that are in there.
I just want to sit in it and just look around at, so 91 with all that technology in it.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable.
It's got an audio recorder, so you can put a cassette tape in it, and it's got a built-in microphone. You can turn the microphone on.
So essentially, you could drive in the back of the car and conduct business meetings, I'm assuming.
That's the whole point.
Wow.
So the owner of the long wheelbase Century never drove it. I'm honest. That's so the short wheelbase, maybe. That was a little bit more of a driver car. The long wheelbase, it's not really a limo. People call it a limo. It's not. It's a 4-door, 4-seater. It's just a long wheelbase. It's got enough room it's got like footrest. You can put your feet out. It's got reclining, massaging rear seats that still work.
Jeez.
We drove the car coast to coast. I sat in the back seat of that thing editing YouTube videos because it's got a pull-out wooden desk.
That's what I need.
That pulls out. Had the massaging seats on.
I'm going to dive into Instagram, but I need the Century as my office.
Well, you know what we're going to do? I'm hoping this whole pandemic thing's over by the time H2O, well, not H2O, but Ocean City, Maryland comes around end of September. I'm going to set all of this up with some GoPros in the back of the Century. Have I told you this yet?
No.
Podcast of the Century.
There you go. That's, I mean,
is it?
The title's amazing. Just
right?
the whole idea. So I think that's amazing.
It's going to be a series of podcast shorts.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do like 15-minute ones, not like 2-hour long ones, because we'll be driving in the car. And in Ocean City, people come from all over. I mean, I got friends from England and Germany that come over every year. This year might be, an exception. Tough, yeah. But we're going to do, I'm going to have like friends of mine that are in town that I otherwise would only see once or twice a year that'll be there. And we're cruising the strip. As you know, it's pandemonium. There's stuff everywhere going on. So I'm going to have there's a partition window in the Century. So I'm going to have a GoPro stuck on that facing back at us with these mics.
Who's driving?
All the gear. Corey. Oh. He's already like, I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
I've got a list of like 20 people that are like, because I've mentioned this whole idea of doing a podcast of the Century. And they're like, I'll drive, so we're going to get Corey all done up. We're going to have a GoPro on Corey as well. He'll have the hat and like the suit.
Like the Dumb and Dumber.
With the gloves. Yeah, driving the car.
Little shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah. That's a fancy accent you have there. New Jersey? Or a lovely accent there. Just like Austria. Oh,
Throw a shrimp on the Barbie.
Well then.
That's not. Anyway.
So anyway, yeah, so that's the whole plan with the Century, is to do a podcast in the back of that and have like a GoPro facing forward, and then maybe facing out like what we're seeing on the strip. And
Sure.
yeah, and do like, but anyway, yeah, the back of that car was meant to conduct like business meetings. It's got the audio recorder. It's got heated and cooled compartment with an ice maker in it, so you can actually like make ice.
There you go.
It's got a heated and
little
cooled.
Wawa tea.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. 2 TVs, CD player. It's got a cassette player. It's got wireless remotes for everything, and everything's in Japanese because they never exported that car to Japan. So all the remotes, and I found them on our drive across
Does the
country.
iPhone do that decipher thing?
Yeah, Google Translate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually been over most of the stuff in that car with Google Translate and like
Jeez.
looked at some of that stuff. Most of the buttons in the back, I figured out what they were. Like overhead, the door up above you is the controls for the seat. So there's like a line that's like a wave, and then there's a line that looks like a lightning bolt. And I was like, I bet that's the massaging settings. And sure enough, they were. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But
So sign language.
But yeah, so I'd love if I have that car long enough, or I dive deep enough with that car, I'd love to have you like look at some of the electronics that aren't like the TV isn't working, and I know that like because you like that kind of stuff, you should be the guy to like look at that.
I want to do it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'll have a screensaver soon. When you fire them up, it says MES.
How amazing would that be? That'd be so cool.
That would be cool.
It'd be really cool to somehow be able to transmit to that factory 1991 TV from your phone, so you could play YouTube videos on it.
Oh, that's easy.
With the old TV though, without putting a new screen in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be amazing. Because that has an aftermarket flip down TV from the ceiling too. So if we integrate a Bluetooth into both of those, because that's not OEM, the one from the ceiling that folds down.
Yeah, it's not a.
But the small one in the center console, if I could link, through Bluetooth from my phone, if I could watch like that,
We'll do it.
Oh
No
man.
problem. See?
So I remember, and we'll wrap this up here with this.
Yeah, because I'm gonna pee my pants.
When you, you should tell me. This is the first 2-hour plus podcast I've done that I haven't been dying.
Yeah.
I did one with my buddy Mason, and like 30-40 minutes in, I'm like, I'm not gonna make it.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna make it.
No, just the last 20 minutes, I've been like, okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up because I know exactly how you feel. on the E23 on the 7 Series.
Yeah.
You helped me do the false wall, and you helped me do, because I did the hardwood floor that I laser engraved the BMW logo in, and you helped me do the car phone that operated the air suspension from the factory buttons with the factory leader line with the phone plug that plugged into a junction box in the center console. Everything looked OEM car phone. And we took the whole phone apart. You helped me solder in like all the switches and use the factory harness. We illuminated it red to match the red cabin illumination, because those are normally like a pasty white illumination.
Yeah.
And when I went to the Airlift 3H system, which came with its own controller, and now the phone was like retired as like the air ride control module. We talked about
Which we still could have done.
Yes, I know we could have.
Oh, okay. But
we talked about using the phone as an actual phone. That
Bluetooth.
You could Bluetooth. Any phone call coming to my iPhone would come to that car phone. And I'll never forget, because we were talking about putting, like a Bluetooth headset in it. So the microphone or the speaker would be through the speaker where the car phone is, and the microphone would be where the microphone and the phone is. And, it would all be there. And we'd have a button that would be able to like answer and calls.
Hang up.
And it was one of the early 90s car phones that had like a real small like LCD screen on it, or like whatever type of screen that would be.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, you asked me, you're like, so would you want to do caller ID to that? And I was like, my brain, the emoji of like the exploding brain, like my mind was blown. And I was like, wait, you want to like to the screen on the phone? And you're like, yeah, we could do that. And he's like, and then you were like, we could have it say whatever you want, like the contact of
Well,
what
that's the thing. To me, it's keep OEM plus, right? Is that kind of?
That's it.
There you go.
Yep.
That's how it works.
That's what blew my mind. I was like, if that car phone, that period correct 1980s car phone would ring when my iPhone rings, and I look at that old antique archaic screen on that, and it says like whoever's calling me, that's incredible. So we need to dive down that rabbit hole in the Century.
Yes.
That is motivation for me to keep it longer.
See,
because with this whole pandemic and this lack of travel, and I've been sitting at home a lot, I have ADD really badly, and I'm like, I need something else, because I'm like, the car, I just need to sell that, buy something else. So if I get that thing finished up and we get it over here or whatever, and yeah, we get into the back seat of that car and we start messing with the like factory electronics.
Yeah, first you want everything working.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's an off factor. 91, everything works still.
It might even be as simple as like, oh, that has no ground. That has a bad fuse. Yeah, like whatever. It might be that simple. But well, let's wrap it up, man, because I know how you feel with having to pee really bad. we ate right before this too. And well, you only had mozzarella sticks.
Yeah, because I was like,
shout out to Brookside Pizza 2 in Belmont.
Yes,
that was a really good chicken Caesar wrap.
Always good.
I'm a root beer connoisseur, and I'm becoming a chicken Caesar wrap connoisseur, or critic. Yeah, like sure. I really like them now. It's like a new food for me. Like I hadn't ever had one until like a couple years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I just never. Yeah, I don't know.
Whole new world.
It is a whole new world because I cut bread out. Now I'm having more wraps. And so I get chicken Caesar wraps at places, and now I find myself critiquing them. Brookside Pizza 2 in Belmont, New Hampshire gets a 7.5.
That's pretty good.
7.5.
You got to leave room for improvement.
Yeah. So it was good. Enough dressing. Croutons were crunchy enough. They weren't soggy. Chicken was warm, which was good. And enough cheese. Not enough cheese on the chicken Caesar wrap sometimes.
Really? So that's kind of...
Yeah. They put like grated Parmesan on it like you would a salad. Yeah, it's very, very subtle on a lot of those things. But this one had a good amount of cheese. It was good. But that's a whole nother story. So, Moe Collins. On social media, even though you're going to do your best to be better at social media.
I'm going to try.
Mobuilt on Instagram, but no E. Mobuilt, right? Or is it just Bilt?
No, it's
built regular. The way it's regular spelled. Yeah. Okay, so Mobuilt. And then Mobile Electronics Solutions NH.
That's a good question.
I'll look it up right now.
The NH is there. Just the website and the email.
I'll look it up right now so we get it right. On Instagram, MES is, just Mobile Electronics Solutions, just the way it's spelled out on Instagram. Same on Facebook, right?
Yep.
Mobile Electronic Solutions.
Yep.
And more of a social media presence coming soon. I'll help you out with it.
Oh yeah, it can't get any worse. We know that. Thank God for my wife.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Lisa helps you out with that. I know she does. Yeah, and shout out to Lisa.
Oh yeah, she's the reason we are this far.
Yep.
Because there's been nights I go home, I'm done. That's it. I'm good. She's like, no.
She's
still love it. Yep, I still love it. Are there still people calling and coming? Yep. It's like, all right, we're still gonna do it.
That's awesome. She is definitely your rock. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So what else? Any other closing words? Any other thoughts? Or
no, this is new for me. So if you can imagine how Instagram is hard, and that's just posting a picture.
Well, like I told you before,
video is even.
Well, like I told you before, we even went live with this. It's like we're just gonna hang out, talk. I love talking. Half the time when I come over here or you come over to my place, like we end up talking about mini trucking and body dropping trucks, and that's like what we talk about, or making electronics and cars do like cool modern things. Yeah.
Yeah, with all this COVID crap is.
Well, we'll do more of these because I'm trying to do more. The people that I can get out to see, you know, that are like somewhat local, you know, within an hour or two drive, that I don't have to like really plan out a road trip right now because of what's going on. I want to do more podcasts with them, you know, and I've been doing a few with Corey. I want to get some done with Sam down at Sam Zero, and some local friends. So we'll do this again, I'm sure.
I hope so.
And we'll see how.
I'm gonna pee hours before.
Like I said, man, before we went live, I'm like, did you pee? You're like, yeah, I did. I'm good.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Not enough.
Well, Mo, thanks so much, man.
No problem.
And
appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone else, for listening.
Yeah.
Follow Mo and Mobile Electronic Solutions on Instagram. Check them out on Facebook. If you're in the New Hampshire area and need any electronic work, I mean, lighting work, any bikes, trailers, you do it all. Boats. You do it all. Excavators, skid steers. I see all sorts of crazy stuff in here. You're doing audio and lighting on.
Yeah, you just don't want to limit yourself.
No.
People have to enjoy whatever they're driving.
You can literally do anything. So
we try.
And and my Instagram, John Ludwig, JOHN.Ludwig. Follow the Governors Club. The TGC web store link is in this description if you're on Spotify or YouTube. If you're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, find us on Instagram, and there's links to the web store there. Episode 11 in the books. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Stay healthy. We'll be out of this thing soon, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, dude, you better go pee.
Yeah. 'Cause
I know how that is, man.
Thank God for a cushy couch.
I see you moving around, and Mike, he has to.
Oh yeah, we're back. That's fourth.